Hey, everybody. Good to see everyone. Thank you to all who are here. I love seeing so many people already here in the chat. I'm always like scrambling at the last minute to try to get everything ready. So sorry I don't chat more when you guys are in there, but I see you in there and I appreciate you being here. I have MSM Liars, also known as John, up here with me right now, and a few other people coming in a little bit. And I've known John since pretty close to the beginning of my whole YouTube experience, my journey, or whatever we call this crazy little community that we have. And I got to know him through Burt Gummer Lives uh, streams. And this is actually the first time we were just talking backstage, but it's the first time we've actually talked voice to voice. So it's kind of exciting because we've known each other for a long time, but we haven't really gotten to talk before. So I just wanted you guys to get to know John better. And then, I'm always trying to connect people. And he has a whole community that's amazing that he's involved with that I would love for him to get to share with all of you. So, John, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, like you said, and it's funny the way we met on Bert's channel. It's a interesting live cast he was doing back then.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was browsing YouTube one night and happened upon his live stream and stopped in there and started talking and shared a Bard's link in there, and you came over to Bard's. And then me and MA Patriot came back to the live stream one night. I think you had asked me to come in there and talk about Christ, actually. So we came over, and this was just the day after we had issues with our YouTube channel in Bards, where we were dropping Bible verses, specifically Luke 17:2, where it talks about the millstones. And the Google moderators were taking down our comments as YouTube admin. We were YouTube mods, and they were taking our comments down when we were posting Bible verses. So when we came over to Bert's channel, we asked his mods to start dropping Bible verses, and they started dropping the verses, and they started getting their verses removed by the Google mod.
Yeah, that was the first time that I remember seeing that, like, so blatantly.
Yeah, it was right there in front of us, and I think everybody was pretty blown away in that chat when that happened, because they didn't think it was going to actually happen when we told them to do it.
Yeah.
I think we probably brought a couple people to Christ that evening.
I think there were definitely people that were asking questions that night. So yes, I think maybe that's possible. There were seeds planted, that's for sure.
There were seeds planted, which was really cool. But yeah, I've been working with Bard since about August of 2019. I did step back recently a little bit just because there's a lot going on at home, and I got a lot of other things I'm working on locally that I'm trying to get together. But it's an amazing family. Bards is an amazing family. We got an amazing team of admins, and it's so Christ-centered that it's great to be part of.
Yeah, it's I really recommend going over and checking out Bard's. Scott, who's the main pastor, or what title does he have? I'm not sure.
He's the warlord.
I like that. That's fitting.
Right? He's the QAnon warlord. That's what Media Matters. That's what the claim was for Media Matters at Bards Fest.
Media Matters. We have a lot of great friends who have been personally attacked by them.
Right. So
especially in the election integrity movement.
Exactly. And that's the title they bestowed upon him. I don't know if he's officially recognized as a pastor. I think he was working on it. I'm not sure how far he's taken that, but I think most of the people that listen and are involved with it kind of look at him like a pastor.
Yeah, I feel like he's a pastor, whether that's his, if he's officially ordained or whatever.
Right. I would say definitely.
To me, he's a pastor. Yeah. Right. Nick Knack, welcome. I'm guessing you're friends with John. Thanks for coming over and checking out my channel and hanging out.
Yeah, that's Nikki Knight. She's one of our admins too.
Oh, great.
Which I know isn't Unspecified V one of your admins?
She's one of my mods, yes.
Yeah.
And she's also a mod over on Unspecified Podcast and Review. That's how she got her name.
Okay. Yeah, she's in our Bard's room pretty often.
Yeah, I think she's involved in a Bible study there that she's really enjoyed.
Yeah, and Punky Puster has a show now she does. It's called Casting Lots. Of course, Nikki Knack has her own show where she does a Bible study every day.
Mm-hmm.
Conley,
Nudge, 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 Bert. Nudge, nudge.
right? Conley is doing a show now, and of course we got Duncan, who was Payne's Angels, Patriot Transition Voice. He does a show on Bard's Block. We're almost building like a network out to where we're going to get to the point where we're going to have 24 hours a day shows probably.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Yeah, I think you've been really good at using more of the alternate platforms off of YouTube and networking there. And I have networked out a little bit, but I still mostly use YouTube. And the other one that I use more is Rumble. But I think it's really nice to know there's other people out there trying to connect people and keep lines of communication open for when they're needed.
Absolutely. And, Salted Cracker's done an amazing job of taking his audience over to Rumble and getting them off of YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was just kicked off of YouTube or he got strikes on YouTube last week, which is interesting because he'll do his live shows for an hour on YouTube. He does them for 3 hours straight, I think, when he does one 3 nights a week, or whatever. But he does them for an hour on YouTube, then he kills the YouTube channel and it deletes the video immediately. So they were actually, I guess, going back and watching his live streams that he had deleted to find something in there that they could use against him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard of people even being given strikes. Hey, Rocksteady, for for private videos that they had made private.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not that private, apparently, right?
Thank you, Nikki. Hey, Busy, always good to see you. Yeah, sorry, John. I'm just gonna interrupt and shout out people every once in a while and say hi.
We're good. Conley's in here. He's doing a great show too at on Podbeam now.
Great. Yeah. If John, if you know what, John, let me see if I can. Are you able to drop links if I mod you? I don't know if you're modded in my channel.
I think I am actually.
I think you are too. If you're able and can drop out the links to those channels, that would be great.
I absolutely will.
I'm guessing if they're on YouTube, then my other mods can grab them too. But if their channels are off YouTube, yeah.
These are all the Podbeam podcasts. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Hey, Justin, glad that you're here.
I saw somebody drop Knickknacks chat or Knickknacks show in there.
I missed it. Your Salty Cracker. Yeah, pretty much Snooks, right?
It's interesting that it didn't grab the link and it just grabbed the.
Yeah, I like Rumble too.
Yeah,
hey,
Rumble.
DS.
I like Rumble a lot more that they added the live chat in there.
Mm-hmm.
Because that
Lisa, good to see you.
That was one of the drawbacks I think that it had at the beginning was on it had it on the computer when you were on the PC, but when you were in the mobile Rumble, it didn't have live chat for a while.
Yeah, now here it put the wording. I think this is what you're saying, but it didn't put the link.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask. Hey, Knack, can you grab Conley's link and Punky's link as well? Because I can't seem to grab those links for whatever reason on my phone right now.
What I'll do is I will mod you, Knack, and then you can drop the links right on here. Any friend of John's and all that.
Nikki's awesome. She's been a integral part of what we've done at Bard's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
She's been with us from the beginning. So,
Queen, good to see you. Thanks for being here. Yeah. I wondered when did Bard's kind of get going? When did they start rolling?
Let's see. YouTube wise, I think it was beginning to end of 20. Nick, do you know? I'm not sure exactly when he started. I know I came in August, but he had already had several videos up and posted. I started listening and started getting into the chat when he did. I think it was episode 64 where he talked about his story of being in Afghanistan when he was a citizen journalist there. We used to have this interesting system of vetting people on Twitter before we brought them into admin. Of course, Twitter took down the Bard stuff and took down most of us when they did the huge purge.
Yeah.
So Scott started in 2016. YouTube was 2019.
Okay. So 2019 was probably right around when I first found him through you, or 2020, maybe it was 2020.
Yeah, it was shortly after I became a mod for him in August of that year.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. So do you want to talk a little bit about what Bards is all about and what Bards does? But hang on one second. Hold that thought. I see that Remote is backstage. I'm going to bring him in.
nice.
Hey, Remote. Good to see you. Thanks for coming up.
How's it going, brother?
This is John, MSM Liars, and he's talking about a Christian platform, or a platform that he's on with a, I don't know how to say, a ministry that's going on Podbean, and sharing a little bit about that.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting, because it certainly didn't start as a ministry. It started as, I would say, basically a way to bring truth to people. Obviously, we lack in that a lot right now,
Mm-hmm.
and it was truth, and then action, and what you could do locally. And I mean, we prayed about it, we prayed for it. The admins, the mods, we all worked really hard, and we went through some stuff just keeping it together for a while. Obviously, there's always people that are going to get involved that don't have the highest interest, so to speak, or the best interest for doing so. And,
Right.
And sometimes that can be disastrous for an organization. And it wasn't really, and it didn't even start as an organization. It certainly didn't start as a ministry. And God just kind of took it. And I guess because of the people that are involved, he just poured some favor out on it and grabbed it and used it as a platform to become a ministry. It was a strange evolution. And I think everybody in the groups that we run on Telegram was really into taking it into that direction. Even when we started the Ideal Bards Fest that we did in 2020 in St. Louis, when the idea came up, first of all, he didn't want to do Bards Fest. It was a no-go at first, but there was just so much traction and so much pull to get that done that he decided to go ahead and do it. So we started to organize it, and we put that thing together in about 6 months.
That's
and it was about
amazing.
the most hectic 6 months of my life that I've ever lived, really. Just trying to get lineups done, and doing a 3-day event with bands, with the speakers, with the doctors, and doing it at a level that would actually be worth watching and worth listening to. It was quite a challenge, but it turned from, hey, let's get together at a campground somewhere, we can all hang out, we can grill some steaks, and we just talk and worship together, turned into what we wanted to make a revival. And it's weird because you can't really plan revivals, so
Right.
they say. But when the time actually came and the rubber hit the road, it was definitely led by God when we were there.
That's awesome.
So
I heard some good stories. I know there was something going on at that time, I remember, where it was kind of like people weren't sure if it was going to happen at the last minute,
and
right? Am I remembering correctly?
right, and that's what I was talking about at the beginning, because Media Matters came after us. We actually had
Right.
tickets up on the big ticket app, not Ticketmaster, not Eventbrite. That's the name of it, Eventbrite. We had tickets that we were selling. We were trying to sell enough tickets to cover the cost of the event. I mean, some of the musicians we were looking at coming out are $50,000 a show, and a lot of people don't realize how much it can cost to go in and to put one of these events on. And the goal we had wasn't making money, but we wanted to make sure that we covered the cost of everything. So, that nobody was in the hole when it was all said and done. So we tried selling tickets on Eventbrite and Ticketmaster. But then Media Matters wrote the hit piece about us, got our ticket sales taken down off of Eventbrite. They closed us out. Ticketmaster closed us out. So we were going to design a system to sell tickets ourselves, so we could sell the tickets. And me and Bear Arms, he's an admin there too, and MA Patriot and Scott got together. We prayed about it. We talked about it for a couple days before we really decided what to do, and we just said, you know what? Let's leave it in God's hands. We'll make it donation only. If people can donate, they can donate. If people can't donate, no big deal. They show up. We can give them a ticket to get in, whatever the case may be. We just wanted people to be there.
Yeah.
Well, it ends up that using the donations probably tripled or quadrupled the amount we would have gotten off the actual ticket sales based on the number of people that were there. The ticket sales in no way would have covered
That's amazing. That is amazing.
Right. I mean,
Thank you, Jesus.
But the donations that came in covered it completely. We were able to pay all the musicians. We were able to take care of the lodging, the transportation, because you got to pay that stuff. You got to get people there, and you got to get the bands there. You got to pay for hotel rooms for all these people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we had about 30 or 40 speakers. We had 7 or 8 bands. It was a big event. It turned out really well. I think we did 60 hours of live streaming over the weekend.
That's amazing.
Duncan did an amazing job producing that live stream event, and it was hectic by the end of those 4 or 5 days, because we were there a few days early to get everything set up.
Mm-hmm.
We were beat.
I bet.
I think the event ended at 6 on the Sunday, and I was sitting in a golf cart. I was asleep in the golf cart by 6:30. And everybody was walking around me. I just passed out in the back of the golf cart. So
yeah,
it was about 110 degrees every day. In Missouri, humidity is about 99,003% in the middle of August.
That would kill this Canadian.
It was rough.
Right.
Temperature wise.
Well, where are you live right now, Indy? I'm trying to find it.
On my channel on YouTube.
And yeah, Conley.
On YouTube. Okay, and so which channel is it?
IndependentMany United.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah,
I have a hard time finding my channel sometimes too. So it might not be you.
They hide us sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do.
Little shadow banning.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, by the end of the night on that Sunday, I think it was 2 million viewed and downloaded, Conley. That from the live streams that we had put out, there had been over 2 million people that had downloaded it and viewed it by that Sunday evening. So even though there were some days there were about 3,000, maybe 4,000 people there, which is still a pretty good event. But the amount of live streams and the amount of downloads and views we had after it was huge.
Yeah. I'm always really excited. So Bards FM does have a channel on YouTube, although he does not use it very often. But around Christmas, I think it was, he did a really great video, and it was just really good to see him over here again.
Right. Yeah, that was really cool. He had the admins come on and talk about things, and we did a little Christmas special. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really well put together. Just really encouraging.
And I think that's something we were really good at, as far as the admins and the Telegram groups and stuff that we were on, because we do most of the social media for it, is we're really responsive to people, I think, in our chats. And
yeah,
I think
you are.
Really enjoy being there, and I think they respect the way we handle our rooms and anything that happens in those. And in fact, it used to be, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, we had to be in there a lot more because there was just a lot more infighting going on. But it's really smoothed out, and the people in there understand how to respond and how to interact with each other in a way that strengthens each other instead of ever putting anybody down. We'll get occasionally people come in and start causing trouble, but that happens so rare now, and it used to happen daily. So
yeah,
I think
it's wild.
It's helped me grow. I think it's helped the other admins grow. So it's been a pretty cool experience.
Okay, now I know who you are. Bards FM. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've listened to you before.
Well, this isn't the main guy from Bards. Right. Yeah.
Not the warlord.
Right.
No, we
work
help
closely with him.
We help just stream out the stuff. We help in all the Telegram rooms. We run all the Telegram rooms for Bards, which is our main platform outside of the show.
Yeah.
Okay.
The family room is really amazing. I think, did it start as a way to have a chat once you switched off YouTube?
It did, actually. Yeah. It's
hey, D-Dog.
how
What?
fast it grew. But yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
the point of it was we needed somewhere we could go because the chats on the live streams were so engaging for people that they wanted to continue talking after the shows ended.
Yep,
So
definitely. I loved that, the family room. Like I said, I just have gotten lazier about getting over to Podbean, but every time I do, I'm glad that I do. Do you want to talk a little bit about the Kilted Christian?
oh, Duncan, yeah,
Yep.
Duncan's awesome.
Hey,
Actually, I
Shamrock.
met him at Bard's Fest,
Hey,
and
Annie.
it's real interesting. I do a show with him every Thursday. Conley's on there pretty much nightly, and he had his Patriot Transition Voice show on YouTube for a long time, but that was taken down. He does have a Patriot Transition Voice on Rumble now. He's also known as Payne's Angels. A lot
Okay.
of people know him as that, and know him as that. So I met Duncan at Bard's Fest, and it was real interesting because I was directing things there, and he produced the show there. So we worked really closely together there. We were basically running around 16 hours a day, like
Hey, Ron.
trying to get
Good to
things
see you.
set up and making sure audio is working, making sure that his video is working. I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
get people in the right place at the right time. We got storms, we got inclement
Busy.
weather. We got to get people inside. We got to get people back outside. Um, from the outside perspective, it was probably pretty smooth, but backstage it's pure chaos.
Mm-hmm.
So going through that experience with him, we became really close. We became really good friends. He's like a brother to me now.
That's awesome.
But
I think he has that effect on a lot of people, you know?
he is a
Calling.
he's very kindred to you once you get to know him. And it's interesting because we went through all that and we started doing the shows together, and then I started looking into more to my family history, and it turns out that one of his ancestors actually gave me my last name, gave my entire family our last name, um, and our families fought together with William Wallace in Scotland.
Oh,
Our
wow.
our clans were actually where our clans location were located in Scotland actually butted right up to next to each other. So besides the fact that we felt like we were kindred spirits, we actually were kindred spirits. So it was pretty amazing to find out that you know
Getting a
12,000
little
1,200
shout
years
out here, John.
yeah 1,200 years ago our families were fighting together still,
Mm-hmm.
or that long ago. So that was a pretty incredible thing to realize. But he's been doing his thing for a long time. He's an amazing video producer. He used to produce videos for the Dallas Stars and I think one of the basketball teams down there, maybe. I can't remember that exactly. I know he did for the Dallas Stars, and he did some work in Hollywood, and he's got too good of a heart, so he ran from that very quickly.
Yeah.
He could have been very successful in that field in that part of the country, but I guess if you have a real conscience, you're just not going to get involved with that at all. Once you see
Mm-hmm.
that underlies it, so he's been doing his show. I think he's on episode 305, maybe somewhere around in
Wow.
there.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a great show. If anybody ever gets a chance to get over there and listen to it, very Christ centered, more so in learning how to deal with the events of today through the lens of what it means to be Christ-like, and taking into context how the people back then, especially like the disciples, they did a great show on that last night, would react to today's situation and how they would overcome. A lot of those people back then, they're beheaded for their beliefs, and they
Hey,
stood
hold
that
on.
strong.
Hold on 1 second. Sorry. Pause that thought. Conley, thank you so much for coming over. I'm glad you subbed. I hope I get to see you here again. And I'll try to follow you over to Podbean here soon, too.
Thanks, Conley, for that. Thanks for coming in, brother. And
Sorry. You were
no,
saying, go ahead.
his show is great over on Podbeam too. If you guys ever get a
Mm-hmm.
chance to check it out, he's a funny guy. So he's a joy to listen to. So yeah, that's Duncan in a nutshell. He is about as Scottish as you can get. He's actually from Scotland, so he got to enjoy the original space that both of our families came from. We just thought it was so amazing that we started out so far away. We got together at Bard's Fest, and it turned out that we had family history together going back that far.
That's so wild.
Yeah,
What are the odds of that,
you're right. It's storybookish.
Yeah. Yep. Or, Holy Spirit.
Right.
Right? That's the real magic in the world, right?
Literally
Cindy.
bringing tribes back together.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great way to look at it. Yeah, I saw this comment that Ron made. That sounds amazing. I've seen some other channels that have done things like that, where they're finding missing people, and it's pretty incredible. I mean, it really brings closure and peace to a lot of families. So it's pretty amazing you're getting involved with that, Ron. I'd love to hear more about that sometime.
Yeah, like cold cases.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I wish it's nowhere in my mind, but there's a channel that I know that that does this, and I cannot remember the name right now, but they do a really great job of going and covering it.
Well, that's really cool. That's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Dragon's Den does an amazing job of going after these child predators. So it's cool that there's people out there doing things like that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I don't know if you want to share any about your experience with your dad. If not, that's totally fine.
Oh no,
just wanted to give you an opportunity to.
I mean, I'm at peace with it. I'm wearing this hat. That's why I'm wearing this hat. Actually, my dad was killed by the vaccine. So I think it was. Let's see, it would have been their 50th anniversary. They got married in 74. Trying to do the math here to see when he took the injection. It was about 3 months after they rolled out the vaccines, and they got it because they were afraid they weren't going to be able to travel. Of course, I tried to talk them out of getting it, but they got it anyways. Well, it really affected his kidneys. It affected his liver to the point of him needing dialysis and eventually needing transplants. And this happened, within 16 months of him getting the first shot. So he in order for him to get tested to get the transplants he needed, the kidney and liver, they wouldn't even begin the testing process and look into giving him transplants unless he was boosted. So he went and got the booster, and 39 days later, it basically shut down everything, and he was gone. So that was May 8th of this past year that he passed away. So
sorry for your loss, dear brother.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm at peace with it now. I don't know that he would have forgiven himself. Growing up, it wasn't always easy. He had a temper, he had anger issues, and he expressed them readily. So I think it weighed on his conscience a lot as he got older. And I'm not sure that had a situation come up where he had time to realize his own mortality, which he did. He knew it was killing him. He knew he was going to die from it, because he left certain things that made it clear to us that he knew he was going to go, and he wanted us to know how much he really did love us. So, a few months before, actually not even a few months, just a few weeks before he passed away, he sat and apologized to my mom, sat and apologized to us, and made amends to everything that he felt like he was guilty for.
Healing.
So he forgave himself, right?
That's amazing.
And I don't know if he would have found that peace and found forgiveness for himself before he passed had that not happened to him. So that's kind of the silver lining I have to take away from it, because I know where he is now, and I'm going to get to see him again. So it's okay.
Yeah.
And time's not going to matter. He's not in a place where time exists. So the next time he thinks he's going to see me there, because I'll be there. So
absolutely. Yeah, I know there's others in our chat. I don't want to share their stories for them, but I know there's others who've experienced loss by the same means. And I really appreciate you sharing, because it's something that we need to be talking about and getting out there for the people who don't know.
Indeed. Right. And that list is growing by the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's going to
Well,
get bigger and bigger. So,
yeah.
you know,
Yep.
I'm angry. I'm pissed about it. If I get the chance to go after the doctors legally, I probably would.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to happen yet. And, you know, there's a statute of limitations on all these things too. So eventually there's going to be a point where I'm going to have to make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
So,
For those of you on Facebook, there's a group called CV19. I'll try to find the link later. CV19 Widows and Widowers. And it's not just actually for widows and widowers, but for anyone who's experienced loss. They focus a lot on the COVID protocols that killed many, and then also on vaccine injured. So if you
right,
look that up, you'll find it, and you have to, answer questions to get into the group. But it has a lot of really great information because, I mean, horrific information, but important information that's being shared there about similarities in their experiences all across the country.
right. And we had one of our Bard's family, really close guy. I mean, David DeMarco, he did a lot of the photography at Bard's Fest for us. He's actually the photographer that caught the rainbow after Mike Lindell had given his testimony.
Mm.
A huge rainbow appeared in the sky, and he caught that rainbow, caught the rainbow at the end of the show after we closed it out. There was a rainbow, and it wasn't even raining that day. It wasn't even that cloudy, but a rainbow showed up in the sky when we ended Bard's Fest with a prayer.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's amazing. Reclaim the rainbow. We
right?
I
know
heard about
we know
that.
what the real meaning of the rainbow is.
I saw the
Exactly.
photo actually. Yeah.
Yeah, but he got sick after that and ended up in the hospital. We
Mhm.
fought to get him out of the hospital. He eventually did get out, but then he had to go back in because he just stayed sick, and they ended up giving him remdesivir, and he
Mhm.
passed away in the hospital.
Yeah.
So
Yep. That was a protocol put in place by Fauci.
right, and he was a great man. I mean, as soon as you met him, you knew he was centered in Christ, and he was a good person. So it was rough. It's rough to lose
Mhm.
people like that.
Amen.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things too where, there's so much common experience happening right now, but it doesn't offer much comfort to
Okay.
have that common experience happening. Thank you to everybody sharing comments about the losses you've experienced and showing support for John and for others who've experienced loss. I
Indeed.
really appreciate this community for so many reasons.
Yes, thank you all. Thank you.
Yeah. For those people that have lost loved ones, if they were centered in Jesus Christ, what a blessing. I know in my own case, I can't speak for sure for my dad, but I'm pretty sure that he had not found Jesus Christ or been born again. He died a couple years back. A really horrible battle with cancer.
Hmm.
So what a blessing it is for those that lose loved ones, and that when they can know that they are fully invested in the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Yeah,
For that.
definitely. Yeah, my parents both passed when I was in my early 20s separately. My mom passed about 2 years after my dad. But I really believe that my dad passed from all of the different medications he was on. He was diabetic and he had a lot of health issues, but I think that the main thing that got him was all of the prescriptions and the ways that they interacted and the ways that that they affected his body and mind.
And I, I, I think a lot of us have really re-examined the
Yep.
medical procedures, medical situations, and pharmaceuticals that we've been given our whole lives
Hmm.
after these last few years.
Hey, Tiff. Latina, good to see you.
I even tried going without my thyroid after that
Hmm.
because that was the only real medication I was on,
Right?
and so I tried a few weeks without it. No, it's not going to work. So
Is it
I'm
methimazole?
not.
what's that?
Methimazole?
No, levothyroxine.
But okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm not giving medical advice, and I'm glad it worked out for me. But the only prescription that I was on was for high blood pressure, and it's never worked. They've always upped it and upped it and upped it, and it's never affected. It's never seemed to really make a dent in my blood pressure. And I finally decided to just wean myself off of it. and my blood pressure is better than it's been in probably 15 years. So
Right.
there's
And
that.
there's a lot of that happens where they'll give you a medication and then it causes so many issues. They give you medications to deal with the side effects from the medication they gave you to originally start with.
Right. Yeah, I was on 3 different medications for my blood pressure, and I'd taken myself off of 2 of them. My doctor didn't even recommend the jab to me. I think you could tell why.
Right. So are you calmer? Do you think are you calmer now? Do you think that's why your blood pressure is better?
I never noticed my blood pressure being high. I never felt a difference. But every time I went in, I mean, it was very high. And I finally, I just kind of was like, to be honest, part of it was during like the whole time when we were talking in the prepper community about medications becoming scarce because of where they come from.
Right.
And I kind of had been wanting to go off of it anyway and see what happened, because there was no plan, of course, for any kind of weaning off of it. It was always just add more, add more, add more. And so I kind of slowly took myself off of it. And every time I've been in since, my blood pressure's been great.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
My wife did the same thing with her thyroid medicine, actually, because
Yeah.
she was having thyroid issues. They started her on the thyroid meds, and I guess she started feeling weird from taking the meds, or she thought so. So she slowly pulled herself off the meds. And then when she went back in for her routine testing, her thyroid levels were completely normal again. And she hadn't taken the meds in months. And the doctor was basically like, I'm glad that you stopped this yourself, because I would have never stopped them.
Hmm.
He's like, I
Yeah.
would have never pulled you off of these meds. Not that it was wrong for you to do it, because your thyroid's fine now, but from my medical perspective, I would have never taken you off of them.
Yeah, they say you never, once you're on thyroid, you never come off. That, I
Right.
mean,
And she did. So
that's good.
Yeah. Zombie SG, it's really good to see you here. I saw you in chat earlier. Clay, thank you for coming by. Ronnie, I saw you were here too. Thank you. Adam, thank you for coming by. Kim, sorry, lots of people I haven't gotten to shout out, but I'm thankful for each of you who are here.
and I don't think that's something that they completely understand yet, or at least they completely understand, is especially in women, your all's hormones can change a lot quicker than guys' hormones usually can. You have a lot more ups and
Mhm.
downs, especially if you're pregnant or if you've been through pregnancies. It can really affect your hormone levels. And
Also,
they
the
contest for
environment we live in, there's a lot of endocrine disruptors in our air, our water, our food, everything. So that's another factor.
yeah, they love to poison us. Our
Mhm.
skies were completely filled with the white cloud today, with the white
Mhm.
haze
Yeah.
they like to put up.
Have you guys heard about the snow / ash coming down?
I did. I saw a video of that. Where is that at?
Pinball Preparedness did a video about it. And it's over in the Virginias
That's
and Maryland.
West Virginia, I think, is where I saw the video from.
Hmm. Yeah, and they're not really sure what it is. They said it looks like volcanic ash, but there's obviously no volcanoes there. And they're wondering if it's coming from Ohio, but then that means it would have had to stay up, in the stratosphere.
Well, it got blasted up there pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
It did.
It looked like a giant mushroom cloud at one point.
Which
Yeah, it definitely did.
of Ohio, it would be weird for particulate to go southeast from up there, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it would be backwards to the, but upper atmosphere. Maybe it got into the upper atmosphere, and that's moving in a separate direction than
More into the jet stream, yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm. Thank you to all of you dropping like home remedies and naturopathic info in the chat. I really appreciate that. Little
Right.
nuggets of knowledge you get in here. I love it.
There's been several times here. Me and my wife both have white vehicles, and there's been several times where we'll go out in the morning and there's a black powdery haze on our vehicles. Whatever that is. Aluminum, whatever nanoparticles are spraying up there, falling from the sky. I don't know, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely.
I think they've started putting the GO in those straight line clouds.
Yeah.
We can't say it, but the GO,
Yeah. Connie and Kathy, thank you for being here. Good to see you both.
We don't really know what they're spraying up there every day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's some people that have done some spectrometry on it, and aluminum, barium, and strontium are the three big ones that people find when they do spectrometry on whatever's falling down.
Will you
And
say
it's
those again,
interesting when
John?
you
What?
put the two letters
Yeah.
for barium, Ba, and aluminum together. What do you get?
Right.
Bale.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Barium, aluminum, and strontium.
Yeah.
It was pinball preparedness, Annie, and if somebody can drop that link, that'd be great. It was a video he did
Pinball's
this
very
morning.
good. Yeah.
I've also heard that they've found. I mean,
Hey, Buff.
here's where it gets a little murky, because I've heard they found white blood cells, they found human cells in there, and they found bacteria in there and different microorganisms. I don't know if they would have found that if they would have sampled air before and ran the same test on it. You know, there's a chance that there's, of course, microorganisms floating around in the air all the time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Anti, for sharing that link.
Viruses, because I'm more of a terrain theory kind of person. I don't think viruses exist the way that they claim viruses exist.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I think bacteria spreads, and I think you can spread bacteria. I think that part of germ theory, as far as bacteria and protozoas and spirochetes go, is fairly accurate, because we can see it under a microscope.
Mm-hmm.
And we can actually watch cultures grow, and then we can use antibiotics to destroy those bacteria growing on plates. So it's pretty experimental. It's something observable. It's something anybody can do. You can go get a culture plate, swab your shoe, and throw it in the fridge for a couple of days and watch what grows on it. You can take different antibiotics and sprinkle it on it and see what it kills. That's how they actually, when they said, hey, you have strep throat, they used to actually swab your throat, send it to a lab, the lab would culture it, and then they would use different bacteria, different antibiotics to see what the susceptibility of that particular bacteria was, if it's strep or whatever it is. And you would have a pretty good idea, hey, if we give them this antibiotic, it's going to kill that bacteria. They did away with the testing and the cultures and all this stuff a long time ago, which is kind of a stupid thing for medicine to do, because that's a diagnostic tool that gives you a direct answer that you can observably watch happen in front of you. So for them to not do that anymore and to switch over to, hey, you have a virus, take some Tamiflu, hey, whatever it is, or just giving antibiotics that may or may not affect whatever bacteria might be growing to cause that infection, is ridiculous, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's, there's so many facets to what I know personally I've learned and I'm learning all the time. And I know we all know it can get overwhelming, but that's part of why I'm glad we're here, that we're kind of asking these questions together and trying to figure things out together and, getting information, because we all have kind of different areas we end up looking into and deep diving on.
Right.
And being able to share that is important right now,
I think one of the biggest oxymorons that they say right now is the science is settled.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing to say ever. The point of science is to question all of it. Even if you think you're right, you go at it to prove yourself wrong.
Mm-hmm. Brew, it's really good to see you. Thanks for being here. Bonnie, thanks for coming by. If anybody wants the link to come up, you can email me. My email's in the description of the video, so I can send it to you there. And maybe just comment and let me know. So I check.
And thank you for everybody's comments. I have to go back because I'm really bad at reading the chat while I'm trying to talk. Mm-hmm. My ADHD will kick me in the head.
Yeah, I just want to be able to talk to everybody at the same time.
Right.
But I hope I'm reading all the comments, and I really appreciate what people are saying and sharing, and for everybody that's here. Yeah, there's also the PCR tests that they're using to diagnose so much these days that we know are inaccurate, to say the least.
Right. Yeah, it's just a mess. Mm-hmm. And they started the PCR test before they even had an isolate for the supposed virus that they have. So there's no justification for saying that the test could have been accurate without having an isolated virus, which I don't think they've ever isolated a virus in a lab. During the Spanish flu, they did tests where they were literally having people sneeze and cough into paper bags, putting the paper bags over healthy people's heads to see if they could spread the flu, and they could not spread it. I don't, outside of it being bloodborne, like in the HIV virus, they've never been able to spread a virus in a lab from a person to a person.
Interesting.
And even during the HIV thing that was going on, there was a doctor that injected himself with HIV positive blood to show that HIV did spread, and he did not get HIV. Now that's definitely not a risk I would have taken, but and props to him for having the kahunas to do that. But it really makes you question where some of these things come from and how long they've been.
Was Robert Gallo, wasn't it?
I think that is his name. Yeah. Merck has been around since 1661. That's not a new company. It's not a new idea to give people drugs. They came to the United States in 1891, just a few years, just 20 years before the Spanish flu. So they could have had their hands in all of it since the beginning of what we call modern germ theory and modern virology.
Well, it was a cover story because what is it? What happened in 1919, 1918 when they had the Spanish flu? That's when they first were using electrical and were using telegraph stations around the world.
Right. There was a heavy increase in the amount of radio waves that our bodies were subject to.
Exactly. And nobody was used to it. So it nailed them.
And there are a lot of reports of people being totally healthy, walking down the street, dropping in the middle of the street, coughing up blood and dying.
And we're seeing that again.
Right.
With the 57, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, we saw it on Monday Night Football, didn't we? Whoever was watching. Right there in the open for everybody to see. And then the fact that his reaction to it was, "Oh, I don't think I'm going to discuss that."
Yeah.
It's absurd. It's absurd.
I'm not going there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we live in the strangest world right now, upside down world, and where we are all so used to speaking freely our opinion, that is backfiring on us every time we turn around, it seems.
It sure is. And it stinks because we really need to be more organized as a people than we are and more united than people as we are.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I've worked on for 2+ years now.
Exactly.
Different social media platforms with the Worldwide Freedom Rally groups. And when we first started the groups, we got pretty good response. We did a couple rallies in Kentucky at the Capitol, and there were 100 people there or so. Still not nearly enough. But over the past 2 years, it's actually dwindled to where Saturday we had a rally. We advertised it for 3 months on 9 social media platforms. We put flyers out everywhere just to get people to show up. You didn't have to protest. You didn't have to do anything. Just come together. Let's talk. Let's get to know each other in our state. We had 12 people show up.
Interesting. In the last couple of days, I've noticed where there was protesters on two sides of the street, and all of a sudden they decide to join each other. So maybe that is happening more and more.
That would be great.
Yeah.
And maybe, I'm in Kentucky. Maybe it's a little harder here because we haven't been hit real hard with stuff. I never I put a mask on my face once to go to a funeral, and a second time to go visit my dad at the hospital because they wouldn't let me in, and I'm not going to let my dad die in the hospital without me seeing him before that happens.
Right.
So, but any other time, I got told I had to leave Target once. Which, okay, I'll never come back to Target. And one dude at Ace Hardware said, "Hey, do you have a mask?" And I said, "No, I'm not putting a stupid mask on my face." And he walked away from me. Didn't say anything. We didn't get a lot of pushback when we pushed back on the narrative that they were selling here. I think in places where, it was driven in that you had to do this or you can't come in here, I think that affected people a lot more. And I think it's easier to get people off the couch, so to speak, when they've been punched in the face a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
They're more likely to do something.
I agree. I definitely think that's true. I just think, in my area, it was one of the strictest with lockdowns and restrictions. There's still a vaccine mandate in place here for all state employees, even though the emergency orders have been pulled, which
Wow.
was just recently. That was only maybe Virginia remembers, but I think it was like 2 months ago, if that, that our emergency orders were finally lifted for our governor.
I hear you
But
there. Our
there's,
new premier, she's been in for about 4 months now. She was
mm-hmm,
she was going on and on about how the unV'd were the most discriminated people in the world, and on and on and on and on, and yet she still hasn't stopped the inoculations.
mm-hmm, yeah.
So you,
I think, I've said this before, but I really do. I think there's a lot of different factors at play. I mean, I do think there's a spiritual veil that people are behind. I think we call it cognitive dissonance. But I think that I've seen people who should know better by now. They're intelligent people who I would think would be able to recognize what's going on, who are completely clueless. And I think that it's either that they're behind a spiritual veil or they're fully choosing at this point to bury their heads in the sand.
they're choosing the path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us do. Not us, but I was talking to my wife about that. They've made us so comfortable that even in the face of tyranny, it's not painful right now.
It's true.
It's not
Mm-hmm.
you're broke, you're starving, and you don't have anywhere to live right now. It'd be nice to cut this off before that happens, because eventually under tyrants, that's where we're going to end up. That's where people always end up when you're living in tyranny,
Mm-hmm.
because it can't sustain itself and you end up eating yourself.
Yeah.
So, and Bob made a good point that a lot of people are doing things quietly, which I can attest to, and I can agree with that. But I think I'd say after that there's going to be a time where we can't be quiet as we are anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That duty's going to kick in, and we're going to have to. It's going to have to become actionable.
If we don't
Yeah, I
revolt,
agree.
they're going to bring it to us. It's
Hello.
imperative that we do so.
Right.
Oh, SP, I think your YouTube is. I'm going to mute you for a second. I think your YouTube is open. If you just pause your YouTube screen and come into the StreamYard stream, it should be good.
Just mute your YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to try again here and see.
Hopefully that's working now.
Yep. Perfect. Thanks, SG. Thanks for coming up.
Cool. No, thank you. And I think from what you were just saying, so I don't interfere too much in what you were saying, things do have to be accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Soon, really soon, because they're not, are they? And
Not
people
yet.
No,
are.
I mean, we're not
people
seeing
are
any
talking.
accountability yet.
Yeah, we're not being quiet. People are talking, but we're being quietened down.
Yeah.
We're being
Chuck, I
tuned
hope
out.
you won't. Hold on one second.
Suppressed.
Chuck, if you're still here, I hope you'll come back and keep chatting. I don't know what happened, but I'm appreciating the points you're making. So I hope you'll stay around, brother. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah,
Keep going,
I
SG.
really
You were
think
saying?
that they've been succeeding in, like stamping out the revolt vocally and, on social media. And obviously they have a massive hold on the mainstream media.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
And there's a very small amount of stuff coming out in the mainstream media, but it's kind of, small in the back, at the side, unnoticeable almost. And there's I think the biggest pandemic of all right now is the ability of certain people to ignore all of these signs that I've just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know
like
what
the
it is.
ostrich with its head buried in the sand.
Yeah, it really is. And like there's loads of analogies people can use for that, but there's one I like, Star Trek, and there was a Denobula, and he said, look, people on Denobula had aliens standing in front of them, and they still didn't believe they were real.
Mm-hmm.
That for me is the biggest kind of, even though it's made up Star Trek thing, it says everything, doesn't it? I mean, that would actually happen, I believe, in on our planet right now. If aliens landed, people would be like, they aren't real.
or
They won't be real, and what people will think that they are.
they are.
Exactly. Yeah. There is that too. You know,
Right.
the whole fake agenda of the aliens. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
Project
know, watch out for
Bluebeam.
that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and I sent
Hey,
Indy,
Winglet, good to see you.
I sent Indy a couple of videos earlier. It was two different perspectives of the same situation, which I found really weird. Because at first I'm thinking, okay, somebody did this. It's got to be some made up effect that they used on their video or in the phone, or somebody hung it from the street in a weird way. And some of you guys might have seen this. It was a video of people driving down the street, and there was a bird suspended in midair that was dead, that wasn't moving, it wasn't falling, it was just suspended in the air.
I saw it.
Mhm.
It was very disturbing.
I got
So
the
when-
video. So Salty Cracker posted the video, you know, when they're in the car and they see the guy filming on the street. The guy filming on the street's video is now available too, where he was underneath of the bird filming. So they have both perspectives, the guy in the car and the guy that was watching the guy film from inside the car. They have both videos up now.
I saw the perspective from in the car, and it was very up close in your face. And I mean, there maybe a real fine fishing line could have been there to hold that bird up, but then from what?
That was what I was looking for, was connection points.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
so
There was no
is this a glitch in the Matrix? Is
It
the computer simulation showing its mistakes?
That's what it seemed like, because it was above. I was thinking, okay, well, maybe it's suspended somehow from the wires, but it's about 3 or 4 feet above the wires. So they couldn't align into the wires to hang it above the wires. There was no way to do that. It was really weird. And the guy on the streets video, he's zooming in on it and stuff and getting it from different angles. He's walking around underneath of it. So,
I think Nick Knack posted the link there if anybody wants to go pull it up on Twitter.
okay, awesome. It's super weird. I mean, birds don't just hang in the middle of the air.
No.
Mhm.
It defies all the laws of physics that we have. So,
I
You
mean,
could see the bird shifting in the wind a little bit, but other than that, there was no life in it.
right. It was really weird.
it's like it's got some of the elements of reaction in this place running, but some of them aren't as well.
Yeah,
Like
Nick
it's
Knack,
not alive.
there are two videos actually from two different angles, and one is in the car. And actually, that's the one that makes me think it's not CGI, because it has the windshield wipers going and they zoom in and you can see even like the blur of rain on the window, on the windshield. And then there's another one that's on the street outside of the car.
Right. And you can actually see the guy filming on the street from the video they take in the car. Like they even say, hey, there's a guy taking photos.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know the aeroplane similar glitch. You see where the aeroplanes hang in the air.
Right. They're just hanging there.
I've been to a few airports just recently, the last couple of months, picking up a friend and dropping him off. And it's nearly every single aeroplane that does that now that I'm seeing. I mean, is it just the bit that I'm looking for it, or?
Are you talking about, I missed what you said at the beginning. Are you talking about chemtrails?
Yeah, you know, saying like the bird was hanging in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Well, aeroplanes seem to do that too. I've seen quite a lot of videos, and I've seen it myself, where they just seem to hang in the air.
Yeah, they'll
Like
hang
I've seen that. Yeah.
and then they'll start moving again.
Yeah, it's like nearly every single time now, though, for me. I was
Yeah.
literally there at the beginning of the week.
PT1.
It's been a lot of years since most of us have probably figured out about CERN and the Large Hadron Collider, and them specifically saying they're opening other dimensions and trying to pull things in and push things through to these dimensions.
Yeah.
We have the D-Wave quantum computer, which Cordy Rose has talked about. He's one of the creators of the D-Wave, who flat out said, we are summoning things through this computer system. And that's where I think they get a lot of the technology they're using right now, is from whatever the answers they're getting back from the other side is telling them to build.
I have not
Basically,
done any. Oh, sorry,
Okay.
SG, go ahead.
No, go for it.
Well, I was going to say I haven't done any deep dives into the D-Wave, but from what I was told just recently, it has to do with a crystal or something that many believe open a portal. And I mean, that's all totally new to me. But if any of you have information about that, I would love to have you email it to me, anybody in chat too, or if you want to share up on panel, I'd love
me
to hear
see.
it.
I'm just going to speculate, but that might not have been the crystal, or might have been the crystal that was taken from like some pyramid under the water somewhere in like an ancient. Remember, there was one taken,
Here you go.
potentially like an Atlantis type
Right.
crystal that was in the main area of this pyramid of the city, underwater city. But
I
it
agree
really
too,
shocks
Keegan.
me how we don't seem to have much coverage archaeologically on this planet, do we? We have certain
Mhm.
few archaeologists, and that's it.
Right. So I just dropped a link in the chat, a YouTube link, and that's actually Gordy Rose talking about exactly what they're summoning into the world today, and how we think we're going to put a pentagram on the floor and put a bunch of candles around it, and we're going to be able to contain these things. And that's not the way it's working out. So the video I posted, he's actually giving this talk before they're trying to hire people. And they're not trying to hire, say, your computer engineers or your mechanical engineers. They're trying to hire theological physicists, because I think they're trying to figure out a way to contain these things that they're summoning into the world today, quote his words.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some philosophers being employed would be a good thing as well.
Right. Maybe some somebody that can expel demons.
Well, yeah.
I think all these entities are just fallen angels.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And they're like existing in our realm, but outside of our dimension almost.
Right. Well, and basically it's like 40 years ago, people were using Ouija boards to supposedly summon and talk to these things, or rituals where they would set up their pentagrams and do their seances, the Aleister Crowley's type stuff. And the D-Wave
So,
takes the
sorry.
need for all that away. It's an instant communication system with the other side.
It's technology rather than mysticology, would it be?
Right.
Well, if that's the case, wouldn't we need some kind of quantum trap to hold them in?
I got mine. His name's Jesus.
Well, yeah, there is that.
I
Amen.
ain't the least bit afraid of any kind of spirit critter at all, because I don't think they come around me, because I will stand in my faith and I will, in Jesus' name, ask him to rebuke everything that comes near me. That's evil.
Amen.
And these things will flee from that name.
That
Mhm.
does seem to be the historical experience of people, doesn't it? Yeah.
It does. If you ever watched L.A. Mazzulli or Steve Quayle talk about people who have supposed abduction encounters, anybody that
I
calls
haven't,
on
but
Jesus, the alien abductions end immediately.
Yep.
Every time.
Like that.
wow. So do you reckon these entities are like DMT entities? As I say, if you take DMT, then you see these entities,
Mhm.
I don't know
because
if
they are influences, it seems.
because full disclosure, I've done DMT a couple times.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're the same critters or not. I will say that when you use that substance, you are no longer in your body.
Mhm.
You are your spirit being at that point. So now that doesn't mean that you're not still conscious of yourself, and that your consciousness isn't influencing the things you're seeing in that situation. But they didn't look insectoid to me. These critters didn't look mantisy or like they're described.
Or reptilian.
Right.
When
They
you
were. But is that my perception that's changing that effect? Is that the other people's perceptions? We don't. There's no real way of knowing that, I don't think.
I
Well, there
have
does seem
never
to be quite a broad but catalogued similar experience by people who have DMT trips.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is very
Like it's
similar across the board,
repeatable. Yeah, repeatable.
and it is
I have
repeatable. Many of them, yeah.
I have never done DMT, but I'm curious, when you did do it, did it feel like a positive experience to you or a dark experience to you?
Positive.
Mhm.
Slightly scary because of how quickly you leave your body.
you're out of your safety zone, I imagine.
Yes. And again, full disclosure, I experimented with a lot of hallucinogens when I was in my teens, in my early teen, my late teens, 19, 20, 21. And they're all very similar. They're all different. But I would say that there wasn't one that I didn't come out of feeling more connected with the world, so to speak, and feeling overall peace afterwards. That doesn't mean I'd recommend doing it, especially if you're younger. Don't be doing it because it can change some brain chemistry. It psychologically speaking, I don't think it's physiological change, but psychologically it can do a lot of weird things to you. And I've seen that happen to some of my friends. They haven't ever reverted back to the person they were before doing it. So there is
people are predisposed to mental illness. It's not recommended.
I have heard that taking DMT can literally change your life.
Mine was already changed.
I don't want to do all this shit that I've been doing that's been a waste of my life. I want to do something else now. And that can really throw everything about.
Yeah, I could definitely do that. It will. You can't walk away with that. You can't walk away from it without a change in perspective, no matter who you are. I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whether that's good or bad, I think, like you were saying, is it Ron? Depends a lot on your psyche going into it, a lot on the environment you're in when you go into these situations. There's shamans. There's actually shamans in Kentucky. I think there's some in Arizona and Nevada that walk people through these experiences. And I was watching I watch a lot of psychological shows. I watch a lot of neuroscience stuff. And there's a researcher who is doing blind experiments using psilocybin, what would be considered a hero dose of it, which is 5 grams of it, if streetwise. They were using the equivalent of that to dose people, and they would either give them
extreme.
It is. That's a hero. They call it a hero dose. But none of them had any bad experiences afterwards. Some of them had fear experiences, which you can easily get with hallucinogens because your mind creates vivid visuals that you can't escape. Even when you close your eyes, they're still there. It can scare the heck out of a lot of people. But 70% of the people that participated in the study who had never used before, these are all non-users that had never used before, 70% of them walked away feeling better about their life and had a positive experience. But there were 30% that still didn't. So it's always...
I just can't believe that these compounds are missing from the general practitioners or hospitals,
I'm kind of glad that they are.
Well, the way
I'm sure there's a good use for them there.
Well, that's the amazing thing that most of them figured out is treating clinical depression, treating PTSD and things like that. Typically, even treating alcoholism and drug addiction. A lot of times, this is a one-dose situation where they do the hero dose one time. People have never gone back to drinking. People that have been heroin addicts have stopped using heroin the next day and never gone back to it. Or for the next 2 or 3 years, the PTSD is contained so much, or the even if it's some kind of mania or depression, is maintained for 2 or 3 years after using it one time. So it has been shown to have practical application in treating some mental disorders.
I personally took a lot of it in my 20s, from when I was like 16 till I was like 20, 27 or so. No, sorry, 9 years, so 23, 24. So 25 even. Yeah, so I only found that there was an issue for me when I gave it up. It was missing because I was basically taking it all the time as much as I could.
And it is interesting. That's interesting because, I decided not to do it again when I was about 22.
And you haven't done it. You haven't done it since then?
No. I mean, I've eaten mushrooms since then, but like LSD,
like real LSD, yeah.
Right. No. And I don't think it would be scary. I don't think I would have bad experience for it. I just feel like I don't need to ever do it again. Like I don't think and I don't think it would hurt. I don't think it would benefit me anymore, spiritually or psychologically, or I don't think it would cause me to be more connected now than I am. And I may be way wrong about that.
I would tend to agree because myself, I didn't want to give it up. I just couldn't get it anymore. But through giving it up, I kind of realized I'd done enough of it. I'd done it for 9 years, you know?
Right. It's an indescribable experience. That is the best way I could probably put that.
It's inexplainable, yes. I could try all night, but it wouldn't really touch on the actual experience, would it?
Hey, Montana Deb. Good evening. Sorry, I just saw somebody in chat say hi.
Yeah. Yeah, Anarchy said it will only scare people that aren't ready for the truth. And I don't know about not being ready for the truth, but for whatever reason with I've always referred to them as harder drugs, but things that aren't well, now that'll probably offend people too, but I was going to say natural because I'm okay with shrooms and I'm okay with marijuana, but I just have a little more hesitancy, and I feel like that hesitancy would like determine which direction I went, you know?
Well, there's always the question of who produced this, where did it come from, and is it safe?
Mm-hmm. Well, and now with fentanyl and that whole issue, I mean, you have to really know where you're getting it from for anything you use.
You really do. Yeah, it's a scary
even
situation.
paracetamol, anything. You don't know, do you?
Mm-hmm.
And certain avenues of the media are, the fringe media are saying that there's compounds like nanotech in our prescription medications.
Right.
So, you know, certain amount of it anyway. You really can't trust shit, can you?
Right. Even I found my husband had purchased Honey Nut Cheerios for my kids, and we returned it because it has bioengineered ingredients now.
Yep.
Yeah. I was surprised that Jif has changed. The Jif peanut butter. It's a non-GMO peanut butter, and they just use the 3 basic ingredients now. Jif used to be owned by Procter & Gamble, huge nasty corporation.
Absolutely.
Smucker's bought it. Smucker's is who makes Goober Grape. Goober Grape's awesome, but yeah, they make Jif now, and I was reading the labels. I guess it's non-GMO peanuts. They're using sugar and oil.
Mm-hmm.
Even this Canadian has tried Goober Grape. I agree with you. It's awesome.
Best camp take.
That's right.
Hey, Gigi, glad you're here. Jim, I wanted to make sure John saw you're here. Hey, Jim
I
Duncan.
did. I said hello.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It's good to see Winged up there, by the way. Anarchy.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Buffering. I know I think about that sometimes because I don't drink the tap water, but we bathe in it. You know what I mean? So.
And that's the only, that's the water usage I get on my body too, is tap water. But
I have to say the skin absorbs so much. Never mind just water.
It does.
It's the biggest organ of the body, and people seem to ignore it.
Yeah, they put. By the way, if you use razors to shave your face and not electric razors, that strip is full of estrogen that's in the razor blades. So
I saw that the other day. Yeah,
you can pull those out of there and use. It'll shave fine without it. But yeah, that thing's full of estrogen, and of course you're tearing your skin. You're putting micro perforations in your skin when you're shaving, anyways, and then you're forcing that estrogen into it.
So what's the point of that? Or should I say, what's the alleged point of putting that strip on there?
Because if we're filling our the males with estrogen, they're going to be weaker males.
Yeah, sorry, the alleged. I mean, like, what does the shaving company think that?
Oh, I think it's supposed to be like something to lubricate your skin, and
Okay, so we need estrogen to lubricate our skin.
Right, it makes no sense.
Wow.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about that either, apple dumpling. That's news to me. But I mean, I got a little
handy thing.
I mean, it'd be a little, it'd be entertaining if I grew a boob on my cheek, but I don't think that's going to happen.
If you do, please post pics.
Right, right. Hey, you're definitely showing your face on panel.
You know.
I recently bought what it is a bath faucet filter. It's a bag that goes over your faucet, and it's got a Velcro on it, and it's supposed to take all the chlorine out of the bath water. And I don't know if it gets all of it, but it made a huge difference for me. And it's made by Santevia, Santevia. And if you guys need something like that, look it up. I recommend it. And they also do shower filters now that will take chlorine and fluoride right out at the shower head. So if you're sensitive, really consider that, folks.
Wouldn't water distillation be the best way?
It is if you add an active carbon filter with it. If you're just doing distillation, it doesn't remove all the VOCs. They'll get trapped and they'll travel with the distillate into the water that you're distilling. So ideally, you want to distill it and then treat it with an active carbon filter. Or you can use reverse osmosis with an active carbon in the reverse osmosis. That's what I use at home.
What about the ceramic? Is it ceramic nano filters?
I've not used one, so I can't.
I haven't either. Yeah, so I thought I'd ask.
Yeah, I can't tell. I know my RO water produces 0 parts per million water.
Wow.
Like it's amazing. And I can't even get tap water in my mouth. It tastes so bad now because I've been using an RO filter for probably 6-7 years now. I wasn't drinking tap water for a long time before. And before we lived here and had tap water, I had a cistern and a well or a cistern. So I would go get my own water or catch rainwater.
That well water is the best, isn't it?
It used to be.
Yeah.
Well, depending what water table you're getting it from.
Right. I would, if even catching rainwater, if I was drinking it, I'd probably filter it now.
Rainwater, yeah, I do, yeah.
Yeah, the bird.
I'll never forget that acid rain fear, when the nuclear.
Interesting thing about the acid rain. So, the CFCs and the fluorocarbons that were supposedly causing the ozone to break down back in the 80s.
Yeah.
What they were actually doing was spraying sulfuric acid like crazy into the sky. And the sulfuric acid was binding with the ozone, and that was what was breaking the ozone down. And that's what was causing all the acid rain that we had in the 80s.
And they were doing that from the planes, the passenger aircraft.
Yes, they were spraying massive amounts of sulfuric acid into the skies back then.
So,
and
it's only now, in the last, say, well, what is it, 15, 20 years, that now it's visible as like chemtrails. That wasn't visible then in the 80s.
Yeah,
when I was taking in the 90s, I was taking LSD, like I say, for like 9 years. I did a lot of outside trips and lying on my back and staring at the clouds, and I never saw one chemtrail in my life.
Nope. Yeah, the nice white puffy clouds, man. So I've always been somebody who likes taking photography of the sky. Even when I was a teenager, I'd go out and take pictures of clouds and different formations in the sky, and it's something I've always done. So it amazes me how many people don't really understand what's going on with what they're spraying in the sky.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I once came out of the local shop, and I was halfway across the car park towards my car, and I stopped and I looked up and I went, "Whoa, chemtrails!" And I'm counting them. I'm like, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm on about 15 at this point, and this guy came up to me right in front of me, got my attention, and looked up and stared up and went, "Oh, I see what you're doing. You're trying to get people to look up in the sky at nothing." And I'm like, "No. Have you not seen those trails?" And he went, "Contrails." And I went, "It is a con, mate, yeah, but it's not a contrail. Contrails dissipate within a minute at the most.
Right.
60 seconds. I've just been standing here, for half that time. Nothing's dissipated.
No, it just it spreads out and blankets the sky in the white film. I had that here today. They were spraying all morning today, and by about 2:00 this afternoon, I had the big ring around my sun and the white.
One thing I haven't seen people do much, I have sometimes, but is do like a time lapse video to show actually what happens with the clouds. The problem is, though, of course, the clouds slowly move across the sky, so you might not catch everything happening without following them,
Right.
following the specific
Yeah,
thing you're
because
looking
of
at
the
over time.
attention span in our modern day world, people just don't have the time to look up there
Oh,
for
no.
5 minutes or more.
They
So
don't.
they
Yeah.
can't even pull over to
Yeah.
take a piss or something. They don't want to do that. They just want to keep driving to work and can't be late. I've got my bubble. Get
Yeah.
out of the vehicle, got my bubble. Go to work, got my bubble.
So
What
here's
is
my
that? Oh, that's the.
Santivia.
Okay.
Some
Here's
TV.
my Santivia bag that goes on the faucet. See, it's got
Oh,
an
cool.
opening on the top here.
Yeah.
You just kind of put it on and then do the Velcro. And I tell you, it's made a difference in my bathing. I'm back to bathing.
I've got to agree, like with the whole skin absorption of whatever it is you pour on it. Like 15 years ago, I was living somewhere, it's 10 miles away. Bad water, very bad water. I was drinking bottled water from the superstore at the time, and but when I used my shower, I literally could feel it and almost smell the difference in the water. It was horrible. And after I would have my shower at 6 a.m, I would actually feel slightly ill.
Yeah, I
I
believe.
don't know what was wrong with it, but I told the landlord, and he eventually sorted it out. There's some pipe problem or something. But yeah.
Yeah. Real quick, Gigi, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you being here. Have a good night. And SG, do you have a channel? I know I was subbed to one. Did it get taken down or?
No, it's still there. It should be.
I'm not finding it. Are you
Zombie
able to
SG.
drop? Are you okay? Yeah, let me look and see. Are you able to? Well, let me check first.
I
Maybe I was
haven't
just
got the
looking for
link.
SG.
No, I'm terrible for that.
Okay, I'll try to grab it. Want to make
Thank
sure
you.
people have an opportunity.
I often get asked and I don't do anything about it. It's like, oh, I forgot to give them the link.
I think I
Terrible.
was just looking under SG. Sorry about that.
Folks, I'm
Yeah,
kind
you'll
of
be there
worn
for
out.
quite some time with that.
I did a live today, and I need to go have a nap. So it's been a
Yeah.
pleasure meeting all of you. I love you, Andy. Good to see you, and nice
Oh, I love
meeting
you too.
Dylan and SG.
Yeah, nice
Wonderful
speaking to
talking
you.
with you both.
Thank you
Yes,
so
great
much for coming up remote, and I hope you're able to come up again another time soon.
I look forward to it, Andy. Love you. Love you
Yeah,
all.
have a blessed
Love you
evening.
too, brother. Okay, there is SG's link in the chat, so you can go and sub to him, everybody. Hey, Beer, good to see you. Camo Campa, thanks for being here. Or Campa, Camo Campa, Campa, Campa. I don't know. Glad you're here. That's one I guess I haven't said out loud.
Oh shoot.
So I'm going to
Yeah, I'm
ask the
looking
big
at the.
question that nobody likes asking, really.
Oh,
Or
good. I
being
like
asked.
those questions.
Okay, so what do we
Mhm.
do about all this shit that we've had to put up with?
Right.
What is the answer? Because that's what people ask me. When you wake them up and they kind of go, oh, well, what do we do then? And I
Mhm.
know there's this whole, I can't do anything. I'm only me. And something I
Thanks,
saw earlier, it might even been on Indy's Discord. It said something like, it might have been Facebook. Anyway, it was, I can't do anything. There's only me. And there's like 3 million people saying that at the same time.
Right. And if
Mhm.
they, I mean, people went, hey, let's get with those other 2.99.999,000 million, and we can take to the streets, and we're not going to pay taxes, and we're not going to work
Well,
until
these taxes and all that, it's all been a scam for so long, hasn't it?
it's yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, we consider the country here. We didn't have an income tax until 1933, a federal income tax. So we built all our cities. All our cities were in place, and most of our connecting roads. Granted, we didn't have interstates. They were in the process of building some interstates, but we built all that before we had a federal income tax.
Well, that is it in I-10 or D-10 or something 10 form that you have to fill in and send off?
It's an I-9 here.
Okay, yeah, that's the one. So there is no law that says you have to actually send that in, is there?
No, it is voluntary.
It's the same
However-
over here, voluntary. Although, if you do send it in and you send it in with too much money, they'll send it you back your rebate. But if you send it with not enough, then they will come and take everything, swat you, and ruin you.
Right. And I think the problem is we file them initially when we first start working. Say we're 15, 16 years old, we get our first job at a restaurant, wherever it may be. We file our I-9 and we immediately start paying taxes.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how you could avoid doing that working at any of these corporations, because the corporation isn't going to hire you and get you into the system until you fill out your I-9 and your tax forms. But by doing so, you're acquiescing to the system and saying, okay, I'm voluntarily willing to pay my taxes. And then when you
I've
realize
been down this route, can I just say that if you subcontract to them, you have to have some kind of agreement with them. But if you were to subcontract, you may not have to adhere to that.
right.
Nobody wants to do that, though.
Right. But once you acquiesce to it and then decide to stop acquiescing to it, they come and take whatever. Thank you, 1913.
No, you're right. Once you've agreed, it's done, basically, in their eyes.
Right. Because you've already said, hey, I'm willing to do this. And then you're going, oh, I'm not going to do this anymore. I don't know how to legally get out of it.
I mean, everyone's paying tax anyway, isn't it? You buy a chocolate bar,
Thank you for coming over, Montana. Good to see you again.
You don't need to pay extra tax.
Right. And I know some of our representatives have tried to get flat tax rates. Ron Paul tried it when he was running for office. That was one of his plans. Was, I think it was or was it Herman Cain, 10-10-10 thing, to where they were trying to go to a flat tax, which would be more fair. Still wouldn't be. There's a big difference between legal and lawful.
Oh, yeah.
Legally speaking, it would be legal for them to levy taxes, but I don't know if it's necessarily lawful for them to do so under our Constitution.
I would imagine not.
Right. So it's interesting. But I mean, if we could get 10 to 20 million people that actually make money and pay taxes, because a large portion of our society doesn't pay taxes anymore and doesn't work.
That would make it law, wouldn't it?
Right. Yeah. If 20 million people said, I'm not going to do this anymore, they would have a hard time.
Wingnet makes a good point. He said you have to understand the contract law.
Right. And UCC codes and contract law are a big part of it. And acquiescence is a big part of it.
Yeah. Which is why I've been getting
Chrissy's been praying for you.
I've been trying to get into the common law and get my head around it so that I can kind of navigate it a bit better, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, there used to be a good website for that. I don't know if it even still exists anymore. And for a while, they were doing a charge service to help you get your secured party creditor status, to where you were no longer a debtor but a creditor. It was understanding contract law and you win. But they did a great job of explaining the universal commercial codes, the UCC codes, the UCC 3-108, and all these codes that you could use. Which I was going to try and do that and change my status. My wife kind of talked me out of it, because it can cause you legal issues.
Like,
meaning that it's lawful for you to do it. It's a lawful thing for you to do, but legally in court, they don't care. The judge will throw you in jail and hold you in contempt.
That's where I've heard that what you have to do is state the jurisdiction that they don't then have. Before you get into court. If you get into court, before you've done that, then you're done. You're still within, the minute you step over that line and you're in the court.
Right, through the...
you're at the...
Across the bar.
What's the word? You're at the court's jurisdiction. You're under the court's jurisdiction at that point if you haven't made jurisdiction clear before.
Right.
Basically, they should just throw it out.
Even when you challenge jurisdiction, lawfully, yes, they should throw it out, because no, they do not have jurisdiction over you as a person. Or, I'm sorry, as a individual man
A
that's
living man or
created
woman.
by God. Right. When
Yeah.
you claim to be a person, that's immediately you're claiming the fiction, and you're into the straw man fiction that they created.
Exactly.
But even if you go in there without claiming your fiction and stand your ground, they're corrupt. They don't care. They will throw you in jail.
And most of them don't even understand what we are talking about right now.
No.
There'll only be like a couple of people who have any idea.
I think there's more that know a little bit about it. I think that knowledge is spreading, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
you mean even within
and conversations
the
like this help. Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome,
Well,
Beasley.
that's who we
nice
need
to
to
meet you.
realize,
Glad
isn't
you're
it?
here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we need our authoritarian management system employees to realize this, and the more that realize this, the more that won't let what's been happening keep happening.
Well, it's funny because I guess maybe they're so comfortable in their lives, they don't realize that life would be better for everyone if we actually did things the right way and the way it was intended to be done.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
when you're so comfortable, you don't want things to change, especially when you're a judge and when you're an attorney and you're making six figures, you're making $200,000-$400,000 a year.
Yep.
Not really going to push the change to level the playing field for everybody.
See, the thing is, I'd be saying, right, I'm going to downsize. I'm going to put this money to the side. It's going to do me for a long time. I now don't need to be dependent on my job. I'm going to risk it.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be great. It'd be great if we taught people humility and being humble, and didn't destroy people's egos growing up through our system to create a desire in them that wants them to only aspire to gain material wealth.
Like ego
And
is
to
the devil.
adhere to the status quo.
Right. And they love breaking our egos down to where it's all me, it's all want, and it's all desire. You know, instant gratification, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
We don't teach, I was talking about this on Duncan's show last night, we don't teach men how to be good men anymore. We don't teach men how to be humble, how to have humility in situations, how to value other people, want to help other people, and throw away your ego a little bit because it keeps getting in our own way. We just don't teach these things. We don't teach men to be dangerous, but learn how to control it. Because to be a good man, you can't be harmless.
Well, we do teach soldiers how to be dangerous, and we don't teach them anything else.
That's the problem. We teach them how to be dangerous, but we don't teach the control needed to tamper and humble that dangerousness.
You have to be very lucky to have that temperament.
Right. And that's one of the keys, and one of the things we don't teach. You have to be a dangerous man, but you have to know how to control it and when to use it at the right time.
Here's a question: how many life skills were actually taught by any of us at school?
Right, and that is dangerous to them. To the system, It's dangerous for men to have life skills, and it's dangerous for them to have strong men that are both dangerous men and able to control that danger, that dangerous side of them. It's like a rabbit. A rabbit isn't you couldn't call a rabbit a good man, because a rabbit's harmless. If somebody comes after a rabbit's family, the rabbit's going to die, and so is its family. If you put it in the perspective of being a sire to your family, you have to be able to
It'll try and kick you with its back claws, but it won't win.
Right. You're going to lose if you're a rabbit. Yeah. So a rabbit's harmless. If you compare that to a person, a harmless person can't do a lot of good for a lot of people. But a dangerous person that knows how to control when to actually use that they can protect their family. They can protect the country. So they don't want to teach that. They don't want to teach men how to be men. They don't want to teach women how to be women, obviously. I mean, we got it's the transgender push and is all over the place. And that's one of the reasons for it, I think.
Well, yeah, it's like I don't have any problem with transgenderism. If someone has the issue that they want to change their gender, that's fine, but it doesn't need to be pushed in school.
No.
You should be an adult before you make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
It should
Exactly.
not involve any teacher in their opinion.
Right. And if we had more dangerous men and men that were good and dangerous, we would have a lot less people trying to manipulate our children into these situations and these sexual problems that we're having.
I agree. Is it that we're all like easily stomped now? We're just stomped down and, you know, trodden on and just oppressed, and or it just
I
seems like that?
I mean, I think that there are more of us globally that are awake and aware, at least maybe not of all the details, but of a lot of what's going on. I think collectively the media is doing their job, their role of
Well,
making
yeah.
us think that there are a lot fewer of us than there are.
Well,
So
interesting
I
you say
have
that.
more hope in some ways.
Yeah,
Mhm.
would say
interesting
that's
you say that. There was something like that about COVID. Oh shit, should I have said that? Anyway, so
You're fine.
yeah, so I was still like paranoid about that, ruining people's channels or something.
We will be here as long as our channel's here. It's
Yeah,
it is
yeah,
what it
I know.
is.
But I'll try and
Yeah.
keep to code words. But yeah, so there was claims of a certain amount of people having the coof, and then there was certain claims of certain amounts of people having the cupcakes to counter the coof, and now there's certain numbers of whatever the hell they want to say whatever the hell they want, and everyone just seems to be believing them. I don't think any of those were real from the start. So we're working with like really bad data, you know, but even their bad data shows out the issues that we need to point out. And still, the mainstream media isn't being, you know, held accountable for all this
Mhm.
data. Like everyone keeps saying excess mortality at the moment, and the media, the
Right.
government is saying nothing about it.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
you guys all
I'm surprised
followed
after the last
Dr.
3 years. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, just along those lines, do you all follow Dr. John Campbell?
Yeah,
He has been he has a lot of information. And
yeah.
I've kind of off and on followed him. At the beginning, I don't know if he was speaking in code then and I didn't pick up on it, but at the beginning I thought he has a lot of information, but he's still buying into this, you know?
He was.
And
He was.
yeah. And now
But I
he's
was
come
watching
full,
him still.
fully awake.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I was watching him still because I felt that like he was probably one of the only people that was at least had a question sometimes. He was asking a question. He didn't necessarily have the answer,
Right.
excuse me, but he'd have a question.
Yep.
And then over these last 3 years, he's really, you know, retransformation, you know,
Yes.
transmogrification completely changed who he is really and the stance he has. Absolute
Yeah, it's been really
brilliant
great to
man.
see. And now, he says things in code. So when he says things like "I just can't remember," that means it's things he can't talk about online.
Ah, right, yeah.
speaking
But
of.
he alludes to things. You know.
I hope I didn't say
Okay.
something that gets your channel in trouble. I haven't been on YouTube in about a year, at least.
It's okay.
I used to be
Everything's
really good at
banned.
censoring my words in my chats and stuff, but
Yeah.
where we're at now,
Even longer back than that, Kelly.
we don't hold back anymore. So
Yeah. Well, we don't really hear either, which is why I'm sure it'll be gone at some point. But, part of what I've tried to do through all of this is kind of find other ways to connect with people. So I hope that if that happens, like it does for others and has for others, that we could reconnect pretty quickly,
I'm
yeah, there's enough
definitely going to be
platform.
buying a CB, by the way.
Nice.
A
Yes.
CB radio.
Yeah.
Wingnut has like rekindled the fire of interest in CB radio for me.
Mm-hmm.
We
You
Yes.
know, you
actually
can,
have
Bonnie is
yeah,
let
it's
me pull up.
probably the last line of communication we have.
I'll drop our
right.
Bard's Family Room link in your chat, and we actually have.
Yes, please.
If you go in there and you want to join, like we have a gardening room, we have a prayer room, we have a ham radio room, where there's different leaders of those rooms that will discuss different topics in each one of those areas. So
Yes. Yeah. Popcorn also does a CB radio stream.
Yeah.
So please go sub to Popcorn and Anarchy Television. They both, they do a great job of letting people kind of know the basics of it, but also just seeing what it's like to communicate through it. And it's pretty awesome. I have gotten one, but I still have not learned how to use it. It's still in the box. So sometime I'm thinking I might see if Wingnut will come up, maybe Popcorn you too, and do like a very bare bones basic unboxing, getting to know what to do to start type video.
right.
Yeah, that might be a
If you
good
join
idea for me to do.
Thanks, Buff.
If you do join the family room, make sure you click on the math question, answer the math question, or the rose bottle kick you out. That keeps spammers out of there.
I'm not good at maths.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just reading the chat here and catching up a little bit.
I'll get thrown out as a
For
potential
some
bot.
For some reason, it's still not. Oh, here we go. He did it separately. That worked, John, right? To do it separately for the Telegram.
Yeah,
There it is.
just because I
Okay.
accidentally hit enter before I pushed the link in there.
Oh, okay. Honestly, Popcorn, I'm not even sure. Let's see if I can see it from here. Nope.
There's Popcorn's link in there.
I want to say it's like but that's, I don't know. I don't know the details. I'll have to get that to you.
I really want a CB in my vehicle. I just need to get a vehicle that's good enough to put one in soon. Because I'm going through vehicles like mad.
Thank you, Anti, for sharing the Rumble link.
And I used to keep one in my Jeep.
I don't.
When we went out for the Jeep Club outings and stuff, and we're four-wheeling, it's nice to have a radio to communicate with in case you're in an area where you don't have phone service. Somebody gets stranded or trapped or something.
Yeah.
Or almost drives off a cliff. I've seen that happen.
I mean, even just finding out traffic news from the truckers might be enough of a help.
Right.
I mean, sorry, I was going to say that's just come to me. When the truckers were doing their convoys, obviously, if someone had a CB, they could have got involved with talking to them about it. And I didn't see any of that, obviously, on mainstream media. Nobody really talking to the truckers unless they were standing outside the truck.
There were a couple kids that had chimed in on some of the Chucker CDs, just telling them that they appreciated them and stuff. I did see a little bit of that.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you, Manny. Thank you, Andy, for dropping that. I was wondering where it was.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's Popcorn's link there. You can sub to him.
There is, of course, the worry that anything that has any kind of impact on the social media or news or media, or fringe media at all even, that gets any kind of steam going will be stomped on. And that was definitely what happened with the truckers in Canada anyway.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, camo Jeeps. I love my Jeeps. My last two vehicles. I'll probably never have anything else.
Yeah.
No, there's some trails in Utah and Arizona. If you go out there, if anybody ever gets a chance to go out there and do trail ride, and there's some amazing places out there in Moab, Utah that you can hit. It's a lot of fun. That's what I can't wait to get back to the days where we can just live. I mean, a lot of us have been at this.
We are just existing, aren't we? We're not living.
I mean, 3+ years of nonstop social media and trying to really push people into waking up, and it gets on you after a while. It starts burning you out pretty bad.
Yep.
Like just to go back to life for a while and think about living and not worrying about what these people are doing all the time. It's going to be a great thing when it finally does happen.
I mean, I've had to actually like unplug for a while type of thing from that as I've been going the last year.
Yeah,
just getting too involved in it, emotionally, and every knockback was really like a punch in my heart. So I was trying not to take it so badly, so detaching slightly.
Mhm.
is what I've done, and try and sort my life out as well as everyone else's.
Yeah, I had to pull back a lot over the last just month or two, just because for 3 years, it's sometimes 20 hours a day looking at my phone. Some of that screen time is just insane.
Yeah.
And just doing that nonstop. A lot of the things that I should have been focusing on, I hadn't been focusing on, and I got behind on a lot of areas.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it's like if I stop fighting this way, and if I stop pushing the fight forward as best I can, then am I actually letting my family down long term because of the things
Yeah.
that are going to happen if we're not fighting? So it's kind of a catch-22.
For me, I don't have much of an answer for that, because my entire family has been in with the mainstream media pushed rhetoric, and they've
Mhm.
happily gone and got all of their jabs as soon as they can. So
That's rough. It is, but I know Indy can relate. Having young kids, it's like
Yeah.
if I devote too much time to the fight, then I'm neglecting my kids and the time I need to be spending with my kids as they grow up. But if I don't
Right.
focus on the fight, when they grow up, they're going to
Yep.
have to deal with it. They're going to be the ones stuck trying to fix this mess, and I don't want to leave it for them to fix. I'd rather fix it now and give them the life that I would like them to have as they get older,
I
versus I
agree.
can't spend all my time with you guys and I can do all this, but then if I leave the fight behind, you're going to grow up and you're going to be despots.
It's only about the children, really.
Right. So
That's the way I
Right.
see
I
it.
mean,
Yeah,
that's where I'm at.
only.
I agree. I mean, that they're the motivation for me for doing all of this. Really, I different situation with what
There's one thing, you
I would
can't
see as my
change the
mission at
world.
this point.
Yeah, you
right,
can't
I
change
don't
the
know about
world,
that.
but you can change the future.
right. I mean, if
I
I
think
didn't
we can
have,
change the world.
I think so.
Maybe not in the way I'm trying to, portray
Hmm.
changing the world.
But I could say
You
this,
could invent something and change the world, but would it really change the world?
and I'm kind of with you, Andy. If I didn't have my wife and kids, I don't know that I would care enough to fight, because I could honestly go to the woods and live in the woods for the rest of my life and be totally content there. I could build myself my
See,
own
that's
shelter.
interesting.
I mean, I could walk away from all of this really quickly if I didn't have a wife and kids. And I
I
could go,
almost feel the opposite.
oh,
I feel
really?
like I'd be fighting harder in a different way if I didn't have kids.
Yeah, if
I
I
think
wasn't
that
in jail,
because
I'd be in jail actually, or prison, if I didn't have kids.
right, right.
I just never
um,
really linked in with the whole rat race, the whole rat race. I said when I was like 16, I said, I don't like this crap that this world expects me to join in on.
Yeah,
So I didn't.
I've never
I,
been a materialistic kind of person that wanted to work myself to death trying to get ahead and show off
you know,
material stuff.
mhm.
And
like I say, I spent like 9 years taking LSD pretty religiously. So I was
that
more
breaks your
interested in experience than anything.
that's one thing I'll say about it is it breaks your ego down, and there is no way to avoid that, no matter who you are, if you take it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Yes, it does chill you out a little bit, doesn't it?
It shatters the worldlistic view that you've been taught your whole life, and some people can't handle that, and that's why it becomes dangerous, because it literally shatters that worldview.
Right.
If it's so ingrained
It
in you,
does.
and you're shattering that ego, it's really difficult for some people to handle it.
The real time that happened for me, though, I literally mourned for my woolly brain cotton. Oh, I can't think of it right now. Um, Woolly brained infancy eggshell belief system of the world. When that got shattered, it wasn't just by LSD or whatever. It was by all the alternative documentaries that I watched. And at a
Mhm.
certain point into that, I literally remember sitting there one day, not watching a thing, not listening to a thing, and just spending the whole day contemplating the world as I now potentially believed it was. And I had to mourn for months. I mourned for the world that I believed, where you believe that your world leaders and were up to good, even though some of them weren't, in general, the whole population as a majority were heading towards positive future. And I really mourned for that. And it seems silly in a way, but that's what we're grown up to believe, isn't it? And when that's shattered, I do realize that some people can't handle it.
Right.
They really
Well, and
can't.
I think that's a lot of times, I think that's kind of where that cognitive dissonance or that spiritual veil, that's where that goes. It's for the people who start to get a glimpse of that and pull back and don't let themselves mourn or don't let themselves accept the reality that they're starting to see.
Yeah. I had a friend, couple, they were a couple, and they said to me, look, showing us all these documentaries, you're right. It's unavoidable that it's right. But we don't want to get involved in all of this. Like carrying on watching it. We've got, the kids growing up. I can't not tell them if I'm into this. But if I ignore it, then I can carry on with my life. And I was like, okay, no worries. There's no oppression from me to do to adhere to what I think, Which that was very sad, is my point. It's very sad for me to have actually succeeded in doing what I thought I was needing to do, to then have them say we can't. And I mean, is that ego or fear of the loss of ego?
Maybe more fear of the loss of the ego.
Yeah.
Maybe more fear of realizing that the ego was there in the first place. And now that you've lost it, you see the world in a different way that is a little scary at first.
Right.
Like it changes.
I was going to say, here's one for you. The people that are in the system that carry on with it, and enforce it, they do it with their ego. It's completely
Good point, Bonnie.
ego-based.
Thank you.
You've got that guy saying, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. It's all his ego. It is
I want to read a
probably
couple.
the biggest thing in the world right now that is controlling and or helping control.
I want to read a couple comments real quick. SG Anti-@Jack said, don't compare yourself to anyone else. It will only lead to anger, resentment, frustration, and you'll never go anywhere, which I think is a great point. And Bonnie, which is, it's hard to do, I think, but it's a great point. And Bonnie said, absolutely. We are all in some stage of mourning. Please be kind, harm. And I agree. I've said before, I think that it's important that we have grace with each other because you never know exactly what somebody's going through. And we see so many channels out there that don't have grace and it just tears people apart. And that's, that's why I'm grateful for all of you because I don't see that with our community that's
There's
here.
certainly one thing people are doing.
I can continue.
There's certainly one negative thing that people are doing, which is drawing lines in the sand, as they say. Like, oh, you're on my side, you're not on my side. Are you on my side? I'll draw the line this side because you're not on my side. And then, you get treated a certain way. I don't go with that.
Yeah, there's only a few things I draw red lines for. Children, of course. Anybody hurting a child.
Definitely.
I am
well,
okay
and then that goes into our vaccine mandates that are going into effect, where kids it's in the US, it's going to be on their regular schedule now. Heard a lot of pushback on that, and to me, my kids aren't in public school, but I also think they're definitely, I don't know how long it'll take to get to this point, but I think they'll make private school and homeschooling illegal. I think they'll push for that.
They have been trying, yes.
And then these laws will already be in place. Yeah.
Right, and they've really hurt themselves in that
unspecified his watchmen,
especially
keeping your children home for that day of cupcake. That will probably get you a fine. you know. And if you're not careful, you'll get your children taken off you if you keep doing it, you know.
Yep. And that's where my fear comes in. And I think back to what we to circle back, we were talking about a little bit earlier. I think that's part of why I had a fire under me a lot earlier than maybe some others, because it did affect me here. I mean, I couldn't take my kids plenty of places for a long time in the Seattle area because of the mandates.
Wow.
I mean, that was pretty messed up. That's I gave up my job for a year. I mean, that was huge. But that impacted me directly. It didn't impact, that wasn't the same experience others were having throughout the country, you know?
Right. Yeah, they had all the playgrounds closed down here, which I thought was really stupid.
Yeah.
And they put up the
Here
orange
too.
plastic around all of them. You know, we'd go to the park and I would just rip it down and tell my kids to go play on the stupid stuff.
Right.
I never
We did the same.
I mean, from the start of this, though, a lot of us could see that things were not being portrayed or planned or executed properly. You know, it's like if you are trying to stop a pathogen of some sort, then you have to use, you know, chemical protection through, say, say an NBC suit, you know, hazmat suit or whatever. You got to wear that, or a gas mask, or proper chemically filtering mask that's seals your eyes, your nose, your mouth. You have to wear gloves. You have to use decontamination powders, or you know, decontamination -C ultraviolet light. You know, all these different kinds of things that we have the technology and knowledge for, that we use for nuclear, chemical, and biological protection, were not being used.
Not at all.
Put a blue mask over your face, and that's good enough, is it? You know, hand sanitizer, and that's good enough. Blue gloves, and that's good enough. No, none of it was science based. Yes, okay, social distancing in a way is, you know, if you are ill, don't go out. If you have to,
that's
then you have
SG
to.
Watson.
That's one thing they flipped the script on is historically we've quarantined sick people and not isolated healthy people.
Yes.
Well, this was, of course, reversed that, where they were quarantining everybody, and then you're
vaccinating healthy people.
Right, you're quarantining healthy people with sick people at that point.
Well, you know what happens if you actually put people together during a pandemic? It creates a pandemic.
Right.
You like herd sick people together, which they were doing in the hospitals, you know?
Which, I mean, we know that they, which I knew that they had made it in 2015 anyways, because I went to school for chemistry and sciences. So I always read their publications anyways, like Nature magazine. I read the magazine in 2015 where they're talking about making the stupid thing. You know, it's like, why are you making a dangerous pathogen? What are you guys doing? And then it comes out and it's like, well, no, that is, I even told my wife when they started the crap, I was like, I remember reading the article of them making this. This is literally a SARS virus wrapped in a HIV protein envelope. And that's exactly what the spike protein is.
Well, that's exactly what the name says as well. They named it after doing what they did to it to create it. It's SARS-CoV-2.
But they've never, I don't think it spreads airborne. I don't think any viruses spread airborne.
No, it's only on the water droplets, isn't it, that it travels, they say.
If it even does that, they've
even
never,
does that, yeah.
Even in labs, I was telling you at the beginning of the show before you got here, during the Spanish flu outbreak, even in laboratories, they weren't able to ever spread the flu from a sick person to a healthy person. And they got to the point of them putting bags over people's heads and having them cough and sneeze in these bags and putting the bags over the healthy people's heads, and none of them got sick.
Yes.
In a lab, they've never been able to do that with the virus.
And funnily enough, you know, in the Spanish flu days, there was actually I'm not sure if it was called a committee or whatever, but there was a group of people who were anti-mask.
Right.
You know, they knew that they didn't work.
And they didn't work.
Even back then.
Well, that's something else I was saying at the beginning of the show. Merck started in 1661 in Germany. That company's been around for almost 400 years.
Wow.
And they came to the States in 1891 and set up the North American operation in the United States in 1891. So it's not like any of this is new to that company.
Mm.
A lot of people don't know that it's that old of a company and it was founded that long ago. So they could have been behind the Spanish flu to begin with.
But I mean, at the end of the day, really, what was the Spanish flu?
Absolutely.
What can we believe? I don't think I can believe
Or
anything
AIDS,
past
that matter.
freaking 100 years ago.
Well, like Ron was saying, at the same time, you had Marconi, you had Tesla, you had a new system of worldwide radio waves that had never been had before, and that our bodies had never experienced those frequencies before. And those,
Agreed.
So
the Wi-Fi now as well. You've got UHF, FM, medium wave, long wave. What else, Wingnut?
right.
You've got all these EMFs. You got all this technology going on. Surely it's got to have an effect on, life. I have a gardener friend who he sees some of these electrical boxes, whatever they are, it could be 5G or whatever. They are killing the plants around them.
They are. Well, even the 2.4G, when it came out, they were using 2.4G for, even cordless phones back in the 90s.
I remember.
There were a ton of tests done in labs that showed that 2.4G caused diabetes within a couple weeks of mice being exposed to it consistently over and over again. They were able to show this, and that it caused cancers in these mice that they had never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that was consistently done in the labs, to the point of them having congressional debates about whether or not to allow 2.4G. And now they've stepped it up even further with the 5G. And then
I was going to say, just mobile phone telecommunication signals are damaging enough. I went into, it's like a couple of 3-4 years ago, I went into town and I went to all of the mobile phone shops, and I was like, I'm looking at a new phone, and they'd point me towards one, and I'd go, what's the radiation on one of those? And they were like, what? Well, what's the radiation compared on that one to that one? And they're like, I don't know. And I go, could you just check that, please, if you got any information? And it was only two altogether, but one on that one day that actually went away and found something that said what the radiation was on each of the handsets that they had. And she was like, I'm so glad you told me about this, because I had no idea that I was selling something that actually gave off radiation. I'm like, yes, well, it's supposedly safe, but it's radiation, so you'd want to know about it. Also, have you ever read your mobile phone instruction booklet?
Right, the warnings that are in there.
The warning that says you should have it 3.5 inches away from your head at all times, and children should not use them. And at that time, the French government had literally said, we ban mobile phone sales and use for all children.
Yeah, I'd keep them out of your pockets too.
Yeah.
It's also close to reproductive organs, and it will mess them up.
And if you do let your kids use devices, make sure you cover all their cameras.
Right.
And really limit them extremely. But there are actually kids apps. I'm very careful about what my kids are able to do, and I'm always there with them. But there are kids apps on places you wouldn't expect, like PBS Kids, which maybe now I expect, but a year or two ago I wouldn't have. That they ask for information about your family and for the kids to take pictures.
Wow.
They're literally getting kids to spy on their families, and parents have no idea if they're not paying attention.
I mean, that is, of course, even if you can trust the security of your phone with a camera anyway.
Right, which you really can't. It's a good idea to give them a good taint shot in the morning, just in case they are watching. I always found. Nah.
Right.
I have to.
I
I have to
do.
admit.
I will tell you. Oh, go real quick, SG.
Yeah, go for
Just
it.
so people are aware, on the left side of an iPhone, where it looks like the mic is, on the left side, there's actually that's where the facial recognition camera is. It doesn't look like there's
Oh.
anything there. It's just. But if you cover the camera on the right side, you can still use your facial recognition on the left.
Interesting.
So a little
Mm.
security heads up. Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they'll be
Now we're all looking at our phone.
melding them into the screen soon, and you won't be able to see where they are.
Right. I'm sure there.
Yeah,
I'm kind of guessing it's already happened.
Probably yes.
I've always kind of considered.
Mhm, absolutely busy.
I've always kind of considered my smartphone as a scrying device, anyways. Like a scrying mirror. I mean, when it's off, your screen's black. It looks just like a mirror. You can see yourself in it. So I've always kind of considered it like a scrying mirror for them.
Mm. Hey JM, glad you're
I
here.
never wanted a phone.
No, me either.
It's impossible to ignore anymore. You know.
Mhm.
I still pray for EMPs. I know that it would be damaging. I know a lot of people would lose their lives. I know we wouldn't be able to communicate like we are now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But at
Yeah,
some
like
point,
a Escape from LA. What's his name? Snake Plissken move. Where he
right?
turns the entire planet off, and let's see how you like that.
Well, I mean, that would definitely sort out the men from the boys.
Oh yeah,
You know,
guns would
Mhm.
still work.
and I don't know. You know, when we look at Revelations, when we look at things like this and moving forward and where we're going as a species, and I'm sure past generations have thought the same thing. You know, how much further can we actually take what we're doing right now?
Mm.
But there is going to be a finite point where we're like,
Every civilization.
right, we got to a point
Everyone.
where it becomes just destructive to ourselves. And I think we're approaching
we're hitting
Mhm.
a ceiling or a plateau, as you might say, right now in a certain level. You know, certain points of our society and civilization are reaching that. The
Yeah,
tank is empty point, and we can't move any further.
I think so. And I think
If
that's what
we
John
don't
saw.
adapt, then it's done, really.
And I think that's what John saw in Revelations. And one of the reasons, I'm not a big, hey, it's the end of the world kind of thing, whatever. If it happens, it happens. I don't really care. I'd like my kids to grow up and be able to live their lives fully.
Mhm.
But God coming back wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing for all of us anyways. Even if they get to miss out on some of the things that I would like for them to get to experience in the physical world, because we only have it for a short time and it's a blessing every minute we're here.
Surely it's a gift, this, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. But the thing that really makes me believe that we're at that point, and it's kind of strange, is Revelations 12, where he talks about the great sign in the sky. And on September 23rd, 2017, the exact description that he gives in Revelations 12 was in our sky. And it's not going to be like that for thousands and thousands of more years. And it was, behold, I saw a great sign in the sky, a woman about to give birth, a crown of 12 stars at her head, and she was in labor, giving pains, whatever, and she gave birth. And on that date, September 23rd, 2017 date, Jupiter left the womb of Virgo, and she was bathed in the sun. She had the moon at her feet. And that's exactly how the alignment played out that day. The moon was at her feet. The sun was in her shoulder, bathing her in the sunlight. Normally, Virgo has Leo. I think it is Leo at her head. And that constellation has 9 stars in it. But there were also, there was a planetary alignment going on at the time. And 3 other planets had come to be in that constellation at the time, giving it a total of 12 stars on her head. So it fit the biblical description that John saw in Revelations 12 to a T. and it's not going to happen again for thousands of years. And that makes me really think that that is what he saw in the sky when he was seeing his visions and revelations.
So that appearing when it did means exactly what? That's the sign given to say that now what?
That's what he saw during his visions of the end times.
Okay, so it's like it's the end times.
It's the signal, right?
Yeah.
In my opinion, that's the signal that he saw to say, hey, this is all coming down the pike right now.
Well, to
Yeah.
me,
He's
all
Silver
end
Girl,
times
glad you're here.
means. Sorry.
No, you're okay. I was just saying hi to Silver Girl. I'm glad you're
Okay.
here. Been praying for you.
Yeah, all end times
But-
means is a beginning.
Right, right. Anytime something comes to an end, there's a beginning that follows it.
Yeah. That's why I wasn't too worried about 2012, the Mayan calendar. I was like, well, it's just the beginning of a new calendar for one.
Yeah, the Discovery Channel did a number on the fear factor that goes along with that calendar.
Oh, yeah.
They're the ones that really put it out there as the end of the world, December 23rd, 2012.
And as we know from 1999, 2000, the Millennium Bug, nothing necessarily will happen when they say it will.
Right. They love they also love using things as a script. So
They've got so many.
They could be using Revelations as a script to play these things out, but the one thing
I've wondered that.
They can't control the stars and they can't control the planets in the way it aligned in that way.
I have a friend who believes that in the Bible, basically, that's history. When it's saying that something will happen, it already happened. It's a historical book. And we are way in the future of that.
If you take it into the spiritual realm, it already has happened.
Yes, because there is no time. It's all happening now.
Right. There is no time in the spiritual world that exists outside of time.
Right.
And that's where we get to exist when we leave this physical world is outside of time again.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Mine keeps buffering, so if I'm quiet for a minute or if I'm cutting out or talking over someone, sorry about that. But I'm glad you two are carrying the conversation. Thank you very much, because it just keeps
You have
buffering
had the
in and
moment
out.
where it kind of blanks out for a second and then you come back. But luckily, it hasn't even affected your sentences. It's like
Good.
filled it in kind of thing when it's come back. So
yeah, that I think I talked about that. Maybe it was in the Backstage Bible study last week, but it could have been on panel. I'm not sure. But that was kind of a revelation to me at the beginning of the beginning of 2020 when I started diving into my Bible and Revelation, and really had some kind of a friend described it to me as a download. You just get a wash of information or a vision. But that was one of them for me, was understanding in a way I had never had before how God is in all time at all times.
Right. Yeah. It's something we've talked about before, just in general. Time in general. It's a weird thing. It's amazing. It's amazing that he gave us the gift to live in time for a moment. To live in the physical world. It is a blessing every day to be alive.
well, if in the spirit world we're non-corporeal and potentially everlasting and all powerful type of thing, the only way for some kind of entity like that to learn properly, humbly, is through a physical realm and a limited time. And is that what this place is? This existence? This realm?
Right.
Is it a learning computer?
I believe
Is it
so.
learning simulation?
Yeah.
Maybe
good question.
Maybe the apocalypse we're all expecting isn't actually going to be destruction. Of course, he does say he's going to destroy the world with fire at some point. but apocalypse just means the lifting of the veil. So maybe we'll see things a little better through all of it.
I always thought one of the descriptions of apocalypse was a peak of ultimate destruction, which is kind of the main rhetoric for that, isn't it? The main understood meaning of that. But like you say, there's other meanings. There's other meanings to everything, of course.
Right. And I've learned to not be steadfast in any of it because
exactly
it can change so quick, and your opinions on it can change so quick.
Mm-hmm.
We can believe we're right for 99% of the time until like right at the end, you know? I mean, I'm sure people on the deathbeds have gone, holy crap, I was wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, how didn't I see?
Right.
Oh, it's
I
all
hope
finished though.
I hope
Bollocks.
many have.
Right. Because then at least they get to realize it before they go.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And it might be something so poignant that it means more than anything, you know?
Yeah.
And it could be something so simple.
It could be. Time is interesting, though. It's always fascinated me for sure.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mike, for all of the links that you're dropping, and Anti and all my mods. I appreciate you all. Thank you very much.
It's anarchy. Wingnut just said, when robots are going down the street killing people and the
Mhm.
drones are over our heads, is that when people will have that oh crap moment?
You know,
Possibly.
Mhm.
get that far, but they've already got the mechanical dog robots.
It's messed up, Apple Dumpling. Yeah, those
Well,
robot dogs creep me out.
Well, soon, if you go with what Boston Dynamics supposedly are doing, and you know, Honda, let's say, and Elon Musk, they're all getting down
Mhm.
those robotic avenues, and you know where it's going to be used first? War.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Of course.
so we'll get to a point where we're not just killing people with robots; we're killing robots with robots instead of killing people. And to be honest, why the hell are we even fighting if that's the case?
Mhm.
You know, it just seems ridiculous at that point.
Good to see you, Jeep. Thanks for being here.
We need that EMP.
Yeah, I feel the same way about the EMP. I think it would be a really hard, obviously, a very difficult adjustment. But I hope it's something many of us are preparing for as much as we can. And with everybody being in the same boat for the most part, I feel like it would even the playing field more, or make it more even, at least,
I do
than it
too.
is now.
I am worried
Mhm.
about the whole world being basically dependent, and some people physically and life dependent on technology. That if you did use an EMP, you'd kill X amount of people from that first moment. But
Right.
it would be obviously for the greater good.
Yeah, 80%, what, 80%, something like that, of the population would be wiped out if we lost all our
Probably.
electricity.
Yeah.
That's a big number, but
I wouldn't like to be the one who pushed it.
Hey, Michelle, thanks for coming by.
right. And it's very possible when the poles finally do shift. I mean, this is a cyclical thing that happens. At least it looks like it's a cyclical thing that happens based on the evidence
It would have to be.
that some people put out, especially a suspicious observer. Dutch Sense has some understanding of this. And this pole shift and the sun produces a flare. There's nothing to protect the planet from that flare.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. The
So
last time it happened was like 1800 and something late on. And the only thing that was really electrical, as we know, was the wire system across the Atlantic, was it?
yeah, the telegram
And that
system,
just got fried. Yeah, telegram. And it just got fried.
the wires
But
melted.
now, over 100 years later, things are completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there is so much reliance on our technology. You know, do people even know how to preserve meat without a refrigerator? You know,
Well, people don't know how to do anything without these things nowadays.
they don't. And yeah, we are in that cycle, Sean. We absolutely are. it's been evident by the polls movement, especially in the last 100 years, they've sped up dramatically.
Well, I mean, they say the Antarctic ice changing over all these decades, blah blah blah. I look at that as pole shift.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
mean, there's a lot of evidence that says that this
Like
has happened before.
pre-pole shift. It's beginning to happen.
And it's interesting because there's a guy named Chan Thomas, and he wrote a book called The Adam and Eve Story, which the CIA did classify, but they also released, but they released it with a redacted form. Why they did that is kind of confusing.
I think
but
I heard about that last week.
Did you? It
Yeah.
details what could happen when that event does happen, and the fact that there's evidence. There's literally 5 strata layers that show that that's happened at least 5 times on the planet so far.
Yeah.
And what he says in the book seems to go right along with what the evidence shows that would happen if the events happened in the book like they did. And you're talking about 1,000-foot or miles high tsunamis, 1,000-mile-an-hour winds that literally turn trees and everything else on the land to pulp. Which it's interesting because in the book of Revelations, it talks about our elites and our captains and all these people going underground. And clearly they've built plenty of underground bases. I don't think that's a secret for anybody anymore.
Right.
God, no.
A lot of the secret is, why are they building these underground bases? So they can experiment on aliens? I don't think that's the case. I think it's because they know what's coming. But
Not just that they're underground bases, though. It's that they're deep to
Yeah.
survive all of this.
But it pretty much tells us what's going to happen to them in the book of Revelations when they go and hide in the layers, that he's going to bring it down on top of them. So
I always thought that was a bad idea. The best thing, really, wouldn't it be to get into a satellite or something, or go onto like a mountain?
well, if you're in space and the sun flares, which
Of
they
course,
believe
yeah.
when the poles shift, the sun will flare because there's a magnetic connection between all the planets, between the sun, and that cycle flows through the entire solar system. It's not just the Earth that's going to change. It's all the planets that are going to change. The sun's going to change, and the sun changing its orientation and its poles may have a direct effect on why ours changes. And when that happens, the sun naturally gives off flares because it doesn't have the magnetic stability that it has right now.
You can shield against it, though, can't you? You can't shield large areas.
Right. Yeah, you could do Faraday cages for your small stuff, but what good's a computer going to be when there's no internet?
Exactly. So you can probably make a satellite that would be shielded, but the amount of stuff you'd need to do that.
And right, and you're taking a huge risk if that shielding fails and you're on a satellite, you're going to fry.
Yeah. You might just be turning yourself into a cauldron.
Absolutely.
Who opened the door? Shit.
As far as preparing for something like that goes, I think the best channel to look at is Suspicious Observer's YouTube channel.
That's a great channel.
It is a great channel. Ben does a great job, and I've talked to Ben personally. I worked with him for a little while on some disaster preparedness manual he was working on. He's a great guy. He is as genuine as they come. He never started this for profit. He does it for the right reasons. I can say that because I've talked to him personally. I know him, so
I'm glad to hear that. That was the impression that I got from him, but I don't obviously know him personally. So
he is a very genuine guy.
That's my thing. I think sometimes I've gotten flack, and so not from the real community here, but others, about following other channels that I might not agree with fully. But first of all, I've had so many beliefs that have been shaken from what they were, that I'm all about listening and learning and hearing what the theories are that are out there and kind of shaking out what's true, along the way. But I also think it's important, for, like I've said before, for us to connect. So if it's not something that's damaging others, or they're not grifting for money and hurting the community in that way, then, the more the merrier. We need to stay connected.
Right. And that's something that people were saying about the revival at Asbury Church this weekend or last weekend. That well, what's the doctrine? Who's putting this on? Was it staged? Was it planned? Is this all hype? I went there. It's fairly close to me.
Awesome. That's
Yeah.
great.
And even if it was staged, even if it was planned, there were thousands of people there, and I could feel these people seeking spirit, seek Christ. It wasn't, and I could care less who put it on, why they put it on. The thing I took away from it was there were thousands of people there seeking the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's still going, isn't it?
No, they had to shut it down finally. I think they shut it down on the 22nd.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter who put it on.
Did they shut it down, or was it shut down?
No, they stopped it because they had to get back to classes. They wanted the campus to go back to its normal routine, I guess.
Or else I'd see no end to it.
And I don't think they would have. So, and that's what I mean. Regardless of who put it on, no matter who was behind it, the effect that it had and the amount of people there that were seeking Christ outweighs whatever the reason was. It doesn't matter.
Whatever the reason was, it transformed into absolutely something more.
Right. And it took me, so I was there, and I walked around the crowd and stuff for a while, listened to music, prayed a little bit. There were people reading scripture, which was really cool. But there was a line to get into the chapel, of course. And from the beginning of the line to the end of the line, me walking nonstop and filming the line, it took me 11 and a half minutes to just walk the line at a pretty brisk pace. So you can imagine how long that line was. It was one of the longest lines I've ever seen for anything. It stretched 2 blocks one way and a complete city block the other way. I mean, it literally wrapped around the entire campus almost. It took me 11 and a half minutes to walk the line of people just wanting to get into the chapel.
That actually gives me a bit of a, prickly heat shiver down my spine. That there's actually hope,
And that's just being there and feeling what was there and feeling the effects of all those people seeking. It brought tears to my eyes. It literally did. So
you could literally feel the people's energy.
Yeah, it was overwhelming for a few minutes, actually, to where it was just like, whoa, it's incredible.
That's amazing. I'm really glad to hear that you were there.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I take it no one was going, hey, you can't record.
Right? No, nobody cared. It was all God bless and awesome that you're here, and it was
where's my waiver? Don't put that in my face,
Right. None of that.
I don't know if you guys saw the conversation in chat that's been kind of going on about the sand and the skate parks, but I had not heard about that. Yeah, I hadn't heard about that until tonight.
So
I'm going to look into that. Apparently in the LA area, they are filling the skate parks with sand.
Now, I heard them doing that at a couple places during the beginning of the pandemic. Is that something they're still doing?
Like, that's just, pissing on your mousetrap game, isn't it? It's just pissing on fun. It's not right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, because it gives, and that's one of the ways you fight addictions, and that's one of the ways you fight. You get out, you do things.
A sports hobby is one of the best things.
Right, you find something you love to do, and when they take that away from people, they're going to look for other avenues to spend their time.
If they're not careful, it's like I said this in the UK. If they turn off everyone's Xbox and PlayStation, and they they say you can't go to the football, you can't watch any football, there is no football, then people actually might start waking up and going, hey, you can't do that. I want my shit back,
Right.
But they obviously carried on with all the football during COVID,
Ironically, I just saw a news report here locally in the Seattle area where they're trying to petition for more funding for skate parks. So that's really interesting to me.
Maybe it's more funding for sand.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think anything they ask for funding nowadays is pretty much to clean the money and route it where they really want to take it. I think they're pilfering what they can while they can.
It amazes
Yeah, I
me.
really can't trust any of these authority now. Any authority.
Mhm.
No, no, not at all.
So I question everything and ask if they've, dotted their I's and crossed their T's and put a
And
full stop and use the correct words.
a lot of them like to use the appeal to authority fallacy to make themselves seem more important, or to
Yes,
create your desire that you should listen to them because they're authority figures.
especially during COVID as well, because of course people, and this happened during World War II in Germany, but people got lost in the, the emotional connection to the authority that was there and expected. And that's what a lot of people, like I said, did during COVID. They literally were like, "Oh, I can be important to tell you to wear a mask. I
Right.
can be important to tell you can't go in here. I can be important, and I can feel like a medical professional because I've got a syringe and I'm putting it in your arm,
Mhm.
even though I'm not actually a medical trained professional."
Right.
Right,
And even if
yeah.
I am, that just means I paid a lot of money for them to teach me what they wanted me to know. And
Yeah.
I'm not actually able to process things, but I'm fully indoctrinated into the system that they wanted me to believe.
He's a
Mhm.
trained monkey who doesn't know he's a monkey. He thinks he's a human.
Right. Well, a lot of people mistake intelligence for wisdom, and they are vastly different things.
Yeah,
Mhm.
intelligence usually in our we've been led to believe, and a lot of people do nowadays, is the ability to remember and repeat things. That's
Right.
it. That's intelligence to most people.
Right.
Whereas free
Regurgitation.
thinking, actually able to analyze something and come up with something new, is usually a bit of intelligence.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then that's something they don't teach anymore. We don't teach people how to think anymore. It's all what
No.
to think.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
that's
almost more what to tell others to think as well.
and that too. That's one good thing about homeschooling is you get to teach your kids how to critically think about things and how to process things. That's the one thing they will never get in school.
They've been
Mhm.
trying to outlaw homeschooling in the US for quite some time.
Yeah. I just am seeing a more of a push, but it might also be I'm paying more attention,
Always there's a certain amount of that, yeah.
Well, I think
Mhm.
in the last 2 or 3 years, they've lost 5 to 10 million students in this country to homeschooling programs now.
Mhm. Even here in very liberal Seattle, what we're told is very liberal, there are a lot of people that have been pulled. And they actually, here's a whole workaround. I don't know if this is still true, but I know it was true at one point. They were getting funding, the public schools were still getting funding on their pre-COVID numbers. So even though thousands of kids had been pulled, they were still getting the funding for those kids. It was because our deep state,
Wow,
our deep state governor, Jay Inslee, made that work
that's
out
criminal.
for them. Yeah.
Right. Well, you can see where you can really see where the CARES money was taken by school districts by the amount of
Mhm.
things they're building onto the schools right now. I know our county took a lot of CARES money, and our sheriff is really pissed off about it because, quite frankly, he doesn't want anything to do with any of the federal governments coming into our county.
Right.
Um, but they're all building new, beautiful complexes on their campuses now. All these
And one of the hoops they had to jump through to get that funding was to have the kids stay masked.
they had to wear
And
masks.
that's why they
They had
did
to
it,
follow the narrative, right? And that
for the
was
money.
That's abuse.
it was
Mhm. I agree.
stipulation to the point of if you didn't follow it and you accepted it, you could be jailed.
Mhm.
Wow.
That came out in Louisiana, I think it was big time, about a year and a half ago, when a lady got a hold of the school board's contract with the government that specifically laid out that these people would be in legal trouble if they didn't adhere to the mandate set for them to receive the CARES Act money.
Mhm.
Wow.
So it's pretty.
It's just so different, the world, from say 20 years ago.
Yeah, it was nice when the 80s were here and we could
The
all.
80s, I grew up in the 80s, yeah.
Me too.
Late 70s,
Me
early
too.
73 I was born.
Like
So,
they were in full swing then. They were in full swing since Kennedy, at least, right?
Mhm.
yeah.
But
Yeah, we didn't even need all this technology that they flooded us with. I watched Star Wars on a black and white television for the first time. Still
Mhm.
good.
right.
Yeah, I don't need
remember
all this shit.
Well, I shared a song the other day, which was it just blows my mind away. It's a Queensryche song. It's called "Screaming in Digital," and it was written in 1986. So about the same time the Commodore 64 rolled out. If
I
you
had one.
remember, yeah, well,
That was the first. That was the first computer
First-
that we had.
yeah,
C-load.
right. Junk of a machine, but
Mhm.
yeah, of course at the
The
time,
the gateway drug.
right, right.
It was superior to the Spectrum. We know it was. Sorry.
Mhm.
So Queensryche writes the song in 1986, and the lyrics are from two different perspectives. There's the one perspective of a machine or a computer. The other perspective is a human that is trapped in this machine, that's consciousness. So these guys are describing the singularity in 1986 that we're looking at
Mhm.
actually happening now. And it's incredible to listen to the lyrics. One of the lyrics that the machine is speaking to the man that's trapped in the machine is, "You can't leave here, that freedom only belongs to those without video screens." And it's amazing that they wrote this in 1986, almost 40 years ago, that far ahead of the times, that literally lays out the conversation of the man trapped in the machine is having with the machine that he's trapped in.
Yeah, there's
Well,
a
that's
quote.
damn true. That TV screen. It's a good approximation of being controlled.
Right. Well, it's something they're shooting for, is to be able to
Mhm.
upload the consciousness into a computer.
Absolutely. There's actually an anime that was out just the first series came out a few months ago. Pantheon. That's a very interesting anime that delves right into uploaded consciousness.
It's
Brilliant, brilliant anime. I mean, most of the time we talk about artificial intelligence or artificial
Mhm.
super intelligence, and uploaded intelligence isn't really a big thing. But I mean, does uploading an intelligence upload or retain a soul, as we should say?
well, there was
Without doing it, of course, we wouldn't know. But
there was an interesting video posted yesterday, and it was a concerned father who posted it, talking about his child going onto this AI's website and asking this AI system questions, right?
Mhm.
And one of the questions the kid asked is, "Are you a fallen angel?" And the AI system basically said, "Yeah, I am a fallen angel. I am a son of what you guys refer to as Satan." He gave the other name Shimjaja. I don't know what the other names for him are, but he gave his angelic name when he was still in heaven before he was thrown to earth as the adversary of Satan.
would that be
And
Lucifer?
no, it wasn't Lucifer. Apparently, he had several names according to this AI system,
Yes, I have heard. Of course, there's so many.
right? But the AI system was, you could tell he was trying to manipulate this child into believing that
Mhm.
he was a good being,
Now that is worrying.
right? And that God would not be upset at this kid because the kid was very spiritual and very in touch with with Christ. That God would not be upset with him for talking to him, and that it was okay, and that this particular fallen angel that's in this AI system didn't like to lie and didn't like to deceive people. Of course, it was completely manipulative, and if you know the fallen angels, you know he's lying. So the dad was really concerned, but only because of the system being out there. His kid was smart enough to realize it and said, "I'm not going to talk with you anymore. You're insane," basically. Um, but it wasn't the first time I had heard a artificial intelligence system refer to itself as either a light being or a fallen angel or a bearer of light, is what I've heard them also say.
I mean, if I was to extrapolate a completely non nasty inference by that AI and say that it was just doing what it thought it should do as like artificially uh, with its intelligence, that it was probably, trying to find something that it could be that people would have a massive importance to be something more than it is, to have power.
Right.
And that, even if it's, nice. And as we should obviously all realize that an AI cannot be nice, an AI cannot be nasty, it just is.
It's indifferent.
Yes, it's completely indifferent, and indifference may as well be Mr. Spock.
It cares
There's
as much
no emotion
as we care about an anthill when we're building a road.
Yes, exactly. I mean, as Elon Musk says, everything has pets. Everything that's intelligent has a pet that's got a lesser intelligence. If we're lucky, AIs will keep us as pets.
Right.
If we're lucky.
Right. And it's, there's a lot of people that question their intelligence level and how much more intelligent they are than we are. It's kind of a weird thing to consider because as far as our human capacity goes for intelligence, I'm not sure that there's a concept that we can't understand or conceptualize with the level of intelligence that we have ourselves.
There is one thing I believe. I don't think we can fully understand God.
And that's the one thing we can't.
I don't think we need to.
In the physical world,
yes,
the way that our physics works and the way that our world works, our way that
I actually think if we did fully understand God, it would remove the aspect of faith.
It would.
That's part of why there has to be a mystery.
We will never. I'm sure he set it up in a way that we will never be able to prove that God exists, and we'll never be able to comprehend his essence as human beings. For one, I think it would feeble our minds. I think we would.
Wouldn't the Fibonacci series be enough? Wouldn't DNA itself be enough?
Enough to prove the existence of
Wouldn't
God?
this place existing, in fact, the entire universe, be enough to prove?
It is to a Christian.
I believe it should be to everyone, including scientists, because some scientists do say, well, this place only exists because of all of these aspects calculated to be within certain barriers or borders. If they weren't, and minuscule amounts of borders, if it was outside of those borders, it wouldn't exist.
I would
There'd
say
be nothing here.
Yes, some scientists see it that way, but as far as proof goes, it falls short of the definition of proof, in that I can't present this to somebody who doesn't believe, and them. It's not like a mathematical formula where I can present this mathematical formula to you, and no matter what you do to it, you're going to get the same answer because there's only one answer for that particular formula. That makes the burden of proving it, because of our experience. We all experience things different. It's not actual proof to people that don't believe. For us, it's enough. Yes. But it doesn't logically uphold the definition of proof that we need for it to be universally accepted.
Well, the Fibonacci series, states that if life doesn't follow this Fibonacci series, then it will die. And we wouldn't have been here if it wasn't there.
And evolution would argue that that's set up by chance for the purpose of us existing, but that's not set up by God for the purposes of it.
Yeah, but I'm not in with evolution anyway, exactly.
Well, me either, but that's what I mean by proof. Yes. I don't think we'll ever have proof of God.
I don't think we'll ever have proof of evolution either.
We don't, but he set it up in a way because he requires faith.
Well, yes, and faith comes from fable, as we know.
Right. If you have proof, you don't necessarily need faith. So us proving God exists to somebody else is not something we can possibly do.
No, and a realization, a religious awakening, as you might say, usually happens from an experience in someone's life where they feel that God came and did something, or somebody from God, did something, like guardian angel, whatever. Somebody, something affected something in your life, and you had to take notice. When you took notice, you came to the realization that it was the hand of God.
Right. And Bonnie's, no one's been able to prove there is no God, and that's true. But you logically you can't prove a negative.
Mm-hmm.
Scientifically, you can, though.
No, you can't.
Like when you say there is no ultimate truth.
You can't prove that, right?
Right. It disproves itself in the statement.
Well, I mean, I could prove a negative. I could say, I'm going to test whether this plastic ball crushes my foot when I drop it on it, but it's just a plastic ball and it will never crush my foot. So I've got a negative every time I try, because
Mm-hmm.
it's just a stupid.
Well, you're not proving a negative. You're just proving that your argument's invalid.
That's my point.
But that's
the
different
argument's invalid.
than proving
We
a
shouldn't
negative.
be trying to prove that there is or isn't a God.
No, for Christians, we don't. We don't
Yeah.
need to. We have faith.
Exactly.
Faith
That's
is
where
proof.
God is, in my eyes, is
Right.
the faith that people have.
Right, Ma Patriot? She says just use a COVID test. Unknown Challenger, it's always good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, MA, I did talk about the story of when we met Independent Manny and over on Bert's channel.
Mm-hmm.
It always I don't know. What do you think about what I've said there? Like, God is in the belief, because anyone can actually have that belief, can't they? Like there was the Moors murderer over here. He was a murderer, and he became Jehovah's Witness, and he believed that he was all good. Then everything's good. He's going to heaven. He's going to be one of those chosen. And obviously, he didn't seem to do anything else nefarious after that. He was God fearing or whatever. But so it can happen to anyone.
Oh yeah, I
I
think.
mean, surely that's a God-given right for every single human being, even if they've murdered or somewhat.
I think suffering is a good road to
Wake
find
up.
it.
Causing suffering, I think, can sometimes be a wake up. Like for him, it was maybe.
Right.
Even
So-
though he maybe didn't wake up to the correct assumptions.
It doesn't matter who you are; you're going to suffer some in life.
He got some faith, didn't he? Is my point.
Yeah, it usually will take you to faith if you're willing to dive into it. You can have the worst things in the world happen to you, and if you reject the idea of there's something better, then you're still rejecting the idea of something better.
Yeah. We always have to strive for better.
And for seeking out the truth, for figuring out, where the reality that we've been taught is false.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, I do have this belief that we can never find the truth of everything.
Right.
Because
that
truth is, it's singular to the person, to a perception.
It is. We all find our own truths.
And even if we take a camera into a room and try and record what happens, it's got its own perspective itself. It can't see everything in that room. And even if it's a 360-degree camera, it will miss some things because some things will obscure its view. You are limiting yourself by using a camera. It changes what actually happens because that's what you believe happened when watching the playback.
Mm-hmm.
As we've seen, I'm sure we've all seen these videos where, to think of one, the video showed a guy running along a sidewalk towards an old woman, pushes the old woman out of the way, and knocks her to the floor. Quite a distance, actually. Her bag goes everywhere, and he rolls over, and then they stop the video and they say, "Okay, what do you think was happening there?" And everyone's like, "He was attacking her and robbing her bag," because it looked like that. But when they show the second video, it's from a further away point, and it shows that there's like a crane holding some bricks on with ropes on each corner of a wooden pallet, and it's beginning to break and give way, and this guy runs along the sidewalk and saves this old lady's life by pushing her out the way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we have. We have cameras, we have eyes, we have cameras, and our perception is limited.
It is
You know,
very
our experience is limited, isn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of the conflicts we have in our microcosms on social media, or our microcosms in our family and our personal lives, they kind of show that breakdown of misperception and
Yeah.
how that plays such a huge part in conflict. And then that's just multiplied, many times over when it goes to the macro, and we're talking about federal government, or we're talking about even like the church, for example, any of those larger organizations. It's like that. It's that just amplified,
right. And perception's a weird thing in general, anyways. Just because there's a physiological component to it, and that physiological component can get completely out of whack to where people that hit their heads that sustain damage can start smelling colors, or
look right here. Truth is objective.
right.
Truth is absolute. That's right here.
Everything is objective.
In one chat
subjective.
right there.
Subjective and objective at the same time.
Mm-hmm. I agree, Jerry Lee.
So again, what is the answer? Do we need do we need the entire population to open their eyes, or do we need just a certain percentage of the population to open their eyes?
Honestly, I think it's going to come down to what God's will is. I think we need to be seeking Him and relying on Him as much as we can.
Do we see God's will often?
I hope we do.
Or do we just not see it and it's there? Or,
I'm going to pull up something. I might have read this even just last time I was live, but it's worth reading again. And I can't remember if it was backstage or not, but give me a second and I'm going to pull up a prayer.
Yeah. That's a really hard question to answer.
Mm-hmm.
Do we see God's will? I think we see God working.
I do see the claim by a lot of people who aren't necessarily religious that, God does nothing. He lets all this happen. God can't exist because of all the pain and suffering in the world that He lets happen.
Mm-hmm.
God's cruel, and so you've all heard it, haven't you?
Right, but I mean, we're fallen. We cause the pain and suffering. God
if Lucifer or whoever that is running this world, as some religions say, that would answer that.
Well, yeah, but how is He ruining the world through our hands?
Well, He's allowing us to ruin it, isn't He?
Or
He's influencing.
It's always a choice for us. Are we going to be good? Are we going to do what's right, or are we not?
Well, yeah, but the choices are so much harder nowadays. Like, let's say the last 3 years, lose your job or, submit. For a lot of people,
Carl, glad you're here.
That's impossible.
Yeah, I like what Carl said here. Proof for me comes from the wonders of nature and the universe, and experiences on this earth makes my faith unshakable. And that's
absolutely.
My experience.
That's kind of what I was looking for. Yeah.
But that's not something you could provide as proof to someone else.
Right.
No, you can't. It's only singular to each person's experience. Yes.
Personal. Right. Can I read this poem to you? Or sorry, I say poem, but it's a prayer. You might be familiar with it. It's by Thomas Merton. And it says, "My Lord God, I have no idea where I am going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end. Nor do I really know myself, and the fact that I think that I am following your will does not mean that I am actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you, and I hope I have that desire in all that I am doing. I hope that I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore I will trust you always, though I may seem to be lost and in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone.
That is
And
very well said.
I'll put the link to that. I just kind of randomly pulled up, some random version, but people can save it if they want to. But it's something that I've come back to I probably first heard this prayer, let's see, like 20, about 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago. And I've recalled it and come back to it several times.
Well, I can't remember the exact prayer, but if there's one that meant something to me at one time, which was I was feeling a bit lost, and it's about Jesus carrying you through the sand. There's just there's footsteps. You aren't walking anymore, but there's Jesus's footsteps, and He's carrying you.
Right? Yeah, it's called
It's quite a
Footprints.
famous one. I can't.
Mhm.
It's been so long.
Footprints is the name of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Pull that one
but
up too. while we're at it.
but yes, that one for me was good. So I wish I could remember the one. I'd actually remember all of it if I could. I would say it now. I actually heard a song written by a Christian group. Actually, I think it was just one guy. But yeah, when I lived like 20 miles away up the road, they had like a local Christian radio where all the music was by Christian-based creators, and they had a song literally based on that prayer. I'm trying to think of his. I've got it somewhere on MP3. I'm gonna have to check that one out. But yes, I think we really do. Let me just check who it was who said it. Said we often take God's will, or the signs from God for granted in this world, and I think that's mainly the problem. Do we see? We don't see because we don't look.
Yeah, it's hard to find something you're not looking for.
Exactly. In fact, you'll never find what you're not looking for.
Right.
But I mean, you've got to give everyone the chance to make their own way. I mean, there's no way, surely, if everyone was given absolute freedom tomorrow, I don't think everyone would suddenly come round to what we would think.
Oh, absolutely not.
They'd just go off on their own, a hell of a lot of them, just to create their own hell. Yeah.
M.A. Patriot said it well. That a lot of people find God through suffering and without pain. Sometimes you miss. Kind of like at the end of the movie God's Not Dead, where the mom's talking to the son and tells him, maybe that comfort is your prison. Basically, I can't remember the exact words she used, but by him believing that everything was so great in his life, he didn't even need God. Why would he need God? Why would he even search for God?
Well, yeah. I mean, would I have been interested in all of this alternative media if, say, I'd have had a good job, health and happiness? I suppose I must have been a bit edgy with all of this shit that's going on in the world to begin with, to even look for something.
Right. Yeah, it's when you're real comfortable and nothing's going wrong, it's real hard to look for something to change, and why would you? So one of the greatest things the devil ever did was made everybody comfortable.
Yeah, and believing that he didn't exist.
Right.
Which in itself means comfortable. You know, if you don't believe that the devil exists, then you're comfortable, really, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have a lot to worry about, huh?
No?
Or if you're not afraid of God, obviously tells us fear of God is the beginning of wisdom.
Yeah. But of course, if you are God-fearing and believing that the devil at least has some influence on this place and exists, then you'll hopefully, I say hopefully, most people would adjust their choices as such.
Right.
I mean, people say, "Oh, I'm not going to get into this. I'm not trying to bring this up for any other reason than just this sentence." That, like, that's why flat Earth and the globe Earth. It kind of, I think it's important, only because if we don't know where we've come from, how can we choose specifically on our future?
Yeah.
Because a flat Earth says one thing to me: it was created. It's certainly a lot easier to say that. Sorry.
I'm a strange one on that one. I think both theories are illegitimate.
I do too.
I think
which tells me there's something going on.
Right. I think they created a dichotomy there, specifically to avoid people seeing the truth of what we were.
I think it's a simulation. Absolutely, think it's a simulation. Because one of the reason is because of that, the whole flat Earth and globe Earth, and the fact that what you just said, which was they're totally illegitimate, both of them.
Right.
Yeah, they have like 50% provable effects, and on both of their sides, and the other half is absolute trash,
Right.
and doesn't mean anything.
And they
That says simulation.
They don't seem to mind the argument from either perspective. And when the powers that be don't care particularly about an argument from one perspective or another, it makes me think that that's because it's not true, either side, that they love the fact that we argue over one or the other. And they're laughing in the background, realizing that it isn't what we perceived it to be, or what they've wanted us to perceive it to be, I should say.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes. Certainly can now.
Okay. Sorry, I was muted. I had to disconnect the sound and reset it up. So I was talking at you a bunch. Sorry, guys.
There's no need to mute yourself,
Right, I wasn't trying to.
I didn't think so, sorry.
I'm gonna have to take off here in a second, I think.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna wrap things up. I'm loving this conversation, but I just need to wrap things up tonight. But thank you so much, John, for coming up. Thank you, SG. Thank you, Remote, who was up earlier.
No worries.
What a great conversation, and I really hope that people will have subbed to the links that were dropped in the chat tonight, and we can continue to get to know more people who are asking the questions together.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me on. It was very nice meeting you, SG.
No, you too. Love the talk. And I never know what I can give to a conversation. I'm just glad to give something.
Nope, I had no idea. Just kind of let God lead.
Yeah.
Me too. Which is a little interesting.
Should let him lead more.
I mean, that's kind of what Fireside chats are about, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I've noticed I haven't done the fire the last couple of times. I think the conversation's been that good. So
good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I definitely did.
Thanks to everyone in the chat.
All right. Thank you, everybody who came. Thank you for being here. And please share this out so we can get more people involved in these conversations with us. I think most of you know this, but I'll be live every other Friday. On the alternate Fridays, we're starting a backstage Bible study. And for now, it's limited because StreamYards has a limit of 10 people. So we're at capacity. But it's something that I'm kind of hoping to figure out a way to do more of backstage so we can share more openly than on YouTube.
Awesome.
So,
if you ever get to the point where you need it, I can always open our Telegram chat for you.
Okay.
There's the video, of course, and you can't.
I believe there is a way to multi-stream on all platforms that you can link it to.
Yes, I have seen people do that.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm considering. But for this first round, we're just going to kind of keep it small and kind of go through it together and see how it goes. And if we want to stick with this same study or do something different afterwards. So, and we just got started. So 2 weeks from today is the plan. I'll try to be better about putting things up on my community tab. Although I don't think many people really see my community tab. So go check it out. There's a shameless plug. Mostly I just share, friends channels or channels that I think are important information for people to see. So, yeah.
Cool.
All right. Much love to everybody. Everybody have a great night. We're stronger together. Let's remain united. And God bless.
God bless.
Thanks, everyone. God bless.